It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
The Colts are benching Anthony Richardson.
Anthony Richardson has been benched by head coach Shane Steichen.
And now the move has been made, and it's a seismic move on a lot of levels.
It is fair to say that it's better right now for this team in this moment to have Joe Flacco as their starting quarterback. Yes, that is fair because Joe is right now a more consistent player.
They've reached the point where they feel like taking a little bit of a back seat might actually benefit him long term.
It's also at the same time necessity that he plays. He has not played much football since high school, let alone college. He has to develop. He can't Trey Lance this. He can't go years and years and years without playing football. The only way at that spot to get better is being in those game environments. He's playing catch-up reps-wise.
Gentlemen, I am giddy on this Wednesday morning. I cannot wait. 12 hours from now, Notre Dame, Fort Wayne, exhibition game.
Let's go, Shrewsbury.
Micah Shrewsbury,
Come on.
year 2, 3 hours to discuss that coming up right now.
Well, I mean, I thought we were doing all Celtics talk this morning.
No,
I was ready for the Boston
not those
Celtics.
Shamrocks. We're going to South Bend, baby.
Well,
Come on.
I guess tomorrow for Halloween, you're going to have to put away the piece of bacon that Kevin Bowen usually is. You're going to dress up like Joe Flacco tomorrow. So, it's all right. We'll express ship a jersey over to you.
So if I have this right, maybe Derek Carr, the quarterback next year. Maybe a resurrection project with Russell Wilson in 2026.
You want Daniel Jones?
Well, I was thinking maybe you could swing it with
DJ?
Could you get Jacoby Brissett on the third time around? You've already had him twice. Maybe Marshall Manning will get to the age where you could tank for Peyton's son, not Cooper's son.
I thought you were going to say Marshall Mathers.
Well, honestly, if Jameis Winston keeps this up, I might have to go back to Marshall Mathers. A good Wednesday morning to everybody out there. Kevin Bowen, Andy Sweeney, Mark Dykton. Anthony Richardson has been benched. My question here on this Wednesday morning is for how long? And I'm very much looking forward to Shane Steichen explaining the rationale behind this, because if you listen to our show yesterday, I am not a fan of it, but I think there could be more to the story than just the simple, he needs a breather.
Well, I think there probably is more to the story. I was stunned. What time was this yesterday? 1 o'clock or so, 1:30, the news break. You look down, it's Adam Schefter, it's Ian Rappaport. I'm not exactly, did ESPN exactly have it first there with Schefter? And, we talked yesterday that there was some tough love going on in that building, possibly with Anthony Richardson, but I don't mind admitting it. Did I think they would actually bench him? And the answer was no. I said it yesterday. I did not think they would bench him. We did have the conversation. It's funny. One thing we were going to talk more about today, KB, was, I thought there was a chance that the leash was a lot shorter for AR going forward and in the game Sunday there in Minnesota. But an outright benching for how long? Who is making the decision? I mean, there are 15 different ways we could go here. Who is making the decision? I think yesterday you brought up all the Jim Irsay stuff. I don't think that is crazy as well. And then, if Anthony Richardson can't play, it just, to me, it's another shot that Chris Ballard isn't a good general manager on top of it. Him not working out, if that ultimately is the case. Can he be benched and come back and still be a really good quarterback, a great quarterback, a developed quarterback in the NFL? These are all things we can talk about, but, the last, I don't know how many hours, last 18, 19 hours, I've been dizzy with all these different Anthony Richardson subjects and scenarios that we're going to talk about this morning, and I'm surprised. You got to be surprised, too. Come on.
Yeah, what is the main reason? Is it Joe Flacco gives us a better chance to win here in the short-term immediacy of this 2024 season? Is it Anthony Richardson legitimately needs a breather, which I guess sounds funny when you go back to Sunday? Is it discipline? Yeah. Shane Steichen has acted upon accountability before. This would be a different form of the accountability. It wouldn't fall, I think, directly. Maybe it does a little bit, but not directly into the Darius Leonard, Deion Jackson, Dallas Flowers form of accountability we've seen. But what about the locker room? And Chris Ballard is obsessed with what the locker room thinks. And Jim Irsay is an old football historian, and I think he was embarrassed by what Anthony Richardson did on Sunday. We've heard Ryan Kelly's comments.
Oh, yeah.
Zaire Franklin has spoken, I would say, similar comments on that end of, there's an example that you have when you are the quarterback, and that is not the message that you want to send. Now, I think both Kelly and Zaire have also prefaced, this is not him, and, we still want to be in the foxhole with him, to use that analogy. So that is just one that I can't get off the plate, Andy. I can't get away from that, because as you leave Sunday's game, the film not as bad as maybe it looks on the box score.
Right.
That narrative has largely been there. I don't know if you agree with it, but whatever. Dan Orlovsky breaking down this film.
There's an absolute battle that AR, while, there's a side that, he's been terrible, the other side is the film isn't as bad as what the box score says.
So I bring that up to say this. If the film is not as bad, let's just go down that path.
Okay.
What has gotten worse since Sunday?
Right. The reputation.
The tapping out and all of that bubbling. And again, Shane Steichen, when he's at the podium Sunday afternoon, that's 10 minutes after the game ends. That hasn't bubbled to the surface. He hasn't spoken with his leadership council. He hasn't really heard, maybe even from the owner quite yet, maybe from his general manager in a very serious setting. As that plays out in the 24-hour cycle after the game, was that at play at all in this? I just think it is a question that has to be asked, because it's such a 180 from everything the organization, Irsay, Ballard, and Steichen have preached about Anthony Richardson needing reps. And I would argue he's about to enter the best evaluation period he's going to have in his NFL career.
No kidding. The next month. Yep.
And by that I mean this. You have the highest blitz rate, the first primetime game of his NFL career, Sunday night. Next week, it's the guy he's been comped to the most in Josh Allen. If you go back to his college career, he was comped a lot to Will Levis, or that thought of, hey, two NFL prospects, and Richardson admitted he hyped himself up for that game but didn't play very well. So now here's a chance in the NFL to have one of those moments. Then the week after that, it's another primetime game. It's a future Hall of Fame quarterback. How do you handle that? And then a month from now, it's arguably the best team in the NFL in the Detroit Lions. So this move, to me, if it's a long one, it just delays the Anthony Richardson decision even longer. And it extends the Chris Ballard leash, frankly, is how I kind of view it. So those are all questions that I'm sitting here on this Wednesday morning with.
Yeah, and listen, I don't expect, this is just me, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe he is much different today. I don't expect Shane Steichen, do you, to say too much? Shane Steichen has handled these press conferences like he's a hostage. To think he's going to go out there and speak eloquently for 35-second sound bites on his quarterback, I'd like to think that's the case. And then the other thing, I know, and Stephen Holder, I know Stephen tweeted as much. I think James Boyd did as well, and I apologize if Joel or Nate or anybody else that I missed that we have on here. The sources are saying that he's not being benched because he tapped out. And this is not about the respective reporters, but I am not going to believe anything coming from the Colts as it pertains to Anthony Richardson. I'm sorry. I'm just not going to do it. I'm not in the business. You can hoodwink me a little bit, but that's not going to be the case. And I think the other thing, part of this could be a one-off with him tapping out of the game and this being, a one-game suspension, okay? We'll play the sound as we go, but I know JMV played it a lot yesterday. It sure sounded like Jeff Saturday knew this was going to happen, right, on First Take, and Dominic Foxworth as well. And then, obviously, Schefter goes on with Pat McAfee. But, we have Halloween coming up, and if you let your kids, I would imagine, you guys would know more than I, you let your kids eat candy for 3 days. They're eating all the, Snickers and Reese's and Skittles and Starbursts and lollipops and everything else. It might be a little bit more difficult to go back to the green beans and peas. And the reason I bring that up with the vegetable analogy is they have let Anthony Richardson eat candy for 3 days. That's what they've done. This has been a coddled, babied quarterback who was given a starting job, who has been statistically a horrendous quarterback. And they've said, and listen, he has had 2 or 3 press conferences where this guy is in la-la land talking about, I'm one of one, we need to run the football more. And just everything he said has been odd in the last week and a half. And it's not surprising that he did what he did last Sunday because he has been an entitled quarterback for a short time in the NFL. So yesterday, listen, I know we're going to talk about this all day. There is a piece of me that, and I guess I'm teasing this for later, that thinks that AR can come back from this. Whether it's a 1, 2, 3, whatever it is, suspension-wise or benching-wise, there is a part, KB, that thinks he can come back from this, but I guess he's going to have to earn the locker room. Can I say one thing about earning the locker room real quick? And this is not to do totally with the Colts, but I'm a little bit tired now that we've had a couple days of it. I'm tired of every NFL guy parading on national television, bagging on Anthony Richardson just a little bit. I've almost turned a little bit on this. I mean, NFL locker rooms allow guys that beat their wives. They allow guys like Deshaun Watson into the locker room. Teams sign these guys. They celebrate these guys. There is a part of me now that we're 48 hours in of AR being bagged, and I've been very tough on Anthony Richardson. The actual benching of him, I part of me understands it, but the holier than thou from some of these these former NFL guys. I mean, a couple New England Patriot guys are in the media. Y'all had Aaron Hernandez on your team. Like, slow your roll a little bit. I wanted to get that off my chest because Richardson deserves the criticism. He deserves to be crushed. And I'm also tired of hearing, though, just a little bit of the sanctity of the locker room. When the locker room has usually allowed some pretty questionable figures in their locker room, and almost every team has a couple of those guys.
A lot there. I know we'll get into it throughout the show. Just a couple other thoughts. You brought up Chris Ballard earlier. I did think yesterday was a reminder of just the mishandling of the most important position in sports over the last 5 years. And I think back to our conversation with him at the Combine in February, when I asked him very directly, your resume, but if you need a reminder, it's 0 division titles and it's 1 playoff win. Why? And I thought he honestly gave a very candid answer in explaining the failures at the quarterback spot and that you have to have a guy that can lead you and make critical plays in that moment. And every year in the playoffs, you see those types of players make that play. And now here you are suffering through the embarrassment of Matt Ryan, Nick Foles, Jeff Saturday, blowing the biggest lead in NFL history. You didn't go through that to walk into the 2025 season with no idea what you're doing at quarterback. And more or less, that's where you're at now. I mean, again, we'll see how this all plays out, but if this is a 1 week thing, what happens if Joe Flacco throws for 280 and 3 touchdowns Sunday night?
I know.
Is it really going to be a 1 week thing?
I know.
That ain't going to be a 1 week thing.
And if he stinks it up, you could have had Anthony Richardson stink it up, and you could have helped in his development.
Well,
that's
and
the other side of it.
I don't know if this is me and election season is fresh in my mind.
Oh boy!
But I feel like I'm speaking to both sides of the aisle here. If you think Richardson still has hope, you play him. You expose him to these unbelievable, unscripted moments that you can't get Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. There is such a misconception of what happens in NFL practices. Anthony Richardson is not going to sniff any meaningful reps today, tomorrow, and Friday. We're about to enter a part of the season, Andy, where Wednesday practices aren't even a thing.
Right. Most guys are off.
There is such a misconception there. But also, if you think Anthony Richardson stinks and you are all in the Joe Flacco thing, this just delays Anthony Richardson's time here in Indy. This just furthers it. He's going to be out there in 2025. You think all of a sudden Joe Flacco, they're going to run it back with him next fall?
They're going to parade Anthony Richardson in front of us again.
So, for me, I feel like I'm talking to the left, the right, the middle.
You're the unifier.
I'm talking to everybody right now.
Yeah,
if you hate Richardson,
you're the third candidate.
Him. Get a clear answer on him. Get a higher draft pick. If he really stinks, keep losing. If you love him, these are the moments you can't get. So I'm a man of the people here on this Wednesday morning.
The only thing I would say to that is, and I want to get to this on the other side. Obviously, we have a morning check down. Ballard, we've talked so much about
is a good day for a beer, honestly.
Is his job at stake? Per ESPN analytics, the Colts now have a 64% chance of making the postseason with Flacco versus 46 with Anthony Richardson. So we talk about the job security. Is he on the hot seat? Well, Chris Ballard could be looking at analytics like that with the move, or it could be a one-game suspension because the Colts decided to baby him, and now they're going to punish him for eating too much Halloween candy. So let's take a break. Coming up on the other side. Again, Stephen Holder coming up at 8 o'clock. Reminder, we do have Pacers Celtics tonight. Our coverage on the Fan at 6:30. Your news and scores from overnight, and then right back to the Anthony Richardson stuff. You're listening to The Fan. It's a Wednesday.
Brought to you by Marion University Football, pursuing another NAIA championship this season. Don't miss the on-campus action at Ascension St. Vincent Field. Visit NUnites.com for tickets.
All right, Stephen Older going to join us here coming up at 8 o'clock like he does each and every Wednesday. Much more on Anthony Richardson and that benching Andy Sweeney. I guess when the defending champs are in town, you would think that'd be a headline story. It gets pushed a little bit to the back burner tonight.
Well, it will, obviously. Today will be all about the Colts. And again, Shane Steichen is supposed to meet with the media what time? 11:30 today. I know it's an early one today, so we'll see exactly how Shane Steichen handles this. I don't have high hopes, but we shall see again. It's going to be Sunday Night Football. It's going to be Minnesota and the Colts. We'll have more on this. Other NFL news over the weekend, or not over the weekend, from last night, you see Deontay Johnson. All this was happening at once, by the way. The Anthony Richardson news, you had Deontay Johnson, who just a few weeks ago, the Carolina Panthers said, we're going to build an offense around Deontay Johnson, and they trade him out of there. So Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, he gets a new weapon. Baltimore Raven fans, all they do is cry and whine that Lamar doesn't have enough wide receivers, so they bring in Deontay Johnson along with Zay Flowers and those tight ends. Not too bad there. And then tough news out of Houston. I think we all feared it. I think we all saw it on Sunday. That torn up knee, that torn ACL with Stephon Diggs. He is done for this season.
Texans tomorrow night. Yeah. Thursday Night Football, Texans and Jets. Still one more week. This is the last game for Nico Collins?
I believe so. I know, Mark Dighton, you're ready for this game. You're a big Jets fan. You can't wait to sit in front of the Amazon Prime
Now's when
TV.
the tide turns.
This
for
is
the
it.
Jets.
This is the time.
The Jets absolutely dominated Houston last year.
I might take the Jets plus the
I
number.
am curious how this one will play out. Again, tonight, Pacers, they are a notable underdog at home, hovering right around 6.5 points against the Celtics. Miles Turner is questionable. That's a big injury. I mean, if he doesn't go, Isaiah Jackson and Enrique Freeman, your big men tonight. I get that maybe Boston doesn't play a very traditional 5, so you could see some Obi Toppin, small ball 5, but certainly pace. I think that honestly is a bigger question than the Pacers' defense through the first 4 games, as shocking as that might sound. So home to the Celtics tonight. They are undefeated. They really haven't been tested too much. I'd argue this is their first true road test of the year at Washington, at Detroit, their other 2 games. So first night game inside of Cambridge Fieldhouse this season. Pacers, Celtics, national television, ESPN today.
By the way, I don't know if you're watching this between this, I know baseball was on last night and everything else. I'm sure you guys were locked into that. Do you see Luka got injured?
I did not, no.
It looked bad.
The Pacers play the Mavericks coming up, right?
I don't think they've said anything officially what it was. It was his right leg. It was just, I can't explain the play to you, but it looked bad. And then he came back in the game, but there hasn't been any finality exactly what is wrong or if he's going to miss time or not. So that is out there. World Series baseball is still going. Fox very happy about that. 11-4 your final last night over Yankees over the Dodgers. Now, did you happen to see the guy? Did either of you happen to see this yesterday?
I'd say it's top 3 wildest fan behavior I've ever seen.
I think I'm with you. So if you don't know, I think second inning, wasn't it? You had Mookie Betts at left field. Mookie Betts makes a play that's right there at the stands, and a guy by the name of Austin Capobianco, which is
the most New York name of all time,
which is the perfect name. Okay,
Bobby Capobianco who played at IU for Tom Crean. Is this like distant cousin?
I thought that was the guy in The Sopranos.
Well, I'm sure they've got some blood there.
I thought that was his name. Him and his buddy, they look like the stereotypical D-bag Yankee fans.
Oh, man, taking shots.
They not only reached into the glove, but they tore the glove away from Mookie Betts. And here's the thing, they didn't get kicked out of the game, KB. If you're listening to me right now and you haven't seen this play, I can't even explain it to you. Mookie Betts makes a play, but he's right there in the stands. His glove is reaching into the stands, and the fan is tearing at his glove to get the ball out, much like I would tear at my dog's jaw to try to get the ball out of her mouth. I mean, that's basically what it looked like, while his buddy was like tearing at the hand of Mookie Betts, so Mookie couldn't keep the ball in his glove. They came back to the game. They got to stay at the game. They're season ticket holders. They're going to be back tonight. They're doing interviews with ESPN. These guys have become famous.
The quote was, "If it's in our area, we're going to D it up." Does he throw out the first pitch tonight?
Well, he should. If the Yankees came back and won this series, which they won't, I believe it will end tonight. I thought it would end yesterday. These guys are on the float.
Felt like
with Brian Cashman.
Like some reason Max Bowen's got my wedding ring and there's like a drain close by. I'm like, give me that back. Garrett Cole, Jack Flaherty tonight, Game 5, as the Yankees try to send it back to L.A. That's pretty much all I've got college football-wise. Again, Curtis Rourke, optimism is there for him to be back in the lineup against the Spartans. I forgot this is like a rivalry game.
It is.
I didn't know that IU Michigan State really rang that bell, but I guess it is. 3:30 Peacock coming up on Saturday. Purdue's going to play both quarterbacks. They have Northwestern. Is this their only chance at a win the rest of the year?
Yeah, this is it. This is the big game.
Notre Dame bye week.
Biggest game of the year for Ryan Walters is probably Saturday against Northwestern. Adam Schefter said something yesterday when he was on with Pat McAfee. I want to hit on that. Can Anthony Richardson come back from all of this? And KB, I know you got 10 thoughts over there. We can get to it all. And I don't know, 8 o'clock hour, let's take your phone calls after Stephen Holder, 317-239-1070. It's a Wednesday, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Well, the show Sunday night will be Sam Darnold against Joe Flacco. Imagine telling NBC that 2 months ago. Hey, yeah, we're going to flex this game into prime time with Sam Darnold and Joe Flacco.
Oh, goodness.
That's what we'll get here.
Hey, Darnold's been pretty good, man. I don't know what to tell you, but they have lost 2 straight, and it is Sam Darnold.
In Week 9, Colts and Vikings. Much more on the Anthony Richardson benching. We'll hear from Shane Steichen later this morning. The accountability word. I do think, Andy, Shane Steichen has preached that and acted upon it. He's probably acted upon it more than preaching it, is how I should put it. And he hasn't had many words, frankly. It's just been, Deion Jackson's cut. Darius Leonard, I don't care if he's on the side of the building. He's gone. Dallas Flowers, we made a mistake there. He's gone. I mean, it's been rather quick, frankly, with those plugs. Now, this would be a different form of it, and part of me can somewhat understand it. Now, there is another side of me that says, well, it's hard for me to really believe this organization is about accountability when the owner talks about the GM as a blue-chip general manager and nothing on the resume says blue-chip GM. And I believe just a couple months ago he labeled the head coach as the next Don Shula, if I have my accuracy on those analogies there.
I forgot about the Don Shula part of that.
Yeah, I think back-to-back sentences, we got blue-chip GM and Don Shula.
It was. In one paragraph, we got both of those. You're absolutely right.
So I don't know if this is another Michael Jordan misses shots moment here, but...
You know how many shots Michael Jordan's missed? You know how many games Michael Jordan's lost?
I guess this is that. Shot on Elo. Oh, misses. The Bulls lose. Maybe that's that. So when I hear accountability, I'm torn because I don't think it's there at the top of the organization. So why should it be there at other rungs of the ladder?
I mean, accountability ultimately is winning football games, and they don't win football games, and it starts there. Do you think Shane Steichen today will tell us? Because I think this is the big question. Did he get benched because of tapping out of the game and because of maturity and everything that you're saying, or did he get benched because statistically he right now is a bad quarterback?
So Monday he wouldn't go there at all. He would say, no, that this is not a factor in this decision at all. He was very clear. No, it didn't. That was his exact quote in referencing the tap-out play.
Okay, so then he got benched for not being very good.
Yeah.
So that's because those are two vastly different discussions. If we are going to have the discussion of Anthony Richardson got sat down because right now he is a struggling starting NFL quarterback, then that brings in all the different conversations of the plan and why did you say this?
Yeah, why is it a 180?
Exactly. Why did you say this a couple years ago? If you were worried about winning games so much this season, why have you said the things that you have said? But why did you pick Anthony Richardson to be your quarterback if that's the case, knowing that you were going to have to go through growing pains? I mean, Jim Irsay, Shane Steichen, Chris Ballard, all of them set the fan base up that there could be rocky times with Richardson. But that's different than if you're punishing your starting quarterback and sitting him. Those are two big-time conversations that are very, very different from one another.
Yeah, I think we need clarity, frankly, on that because I think that differs a whole lot in my overall tone.
1,000% it does.
So
1,000%.
Hoping that we get some...
Shane Steichen's got to be a big boy and step up. If he suspended Anthony Richardson, they need to say, because he tapped out or whatever's going on, if there is something going on behind the scenes, Shane Steichen needs to say that. And he needs to say that today. There's no reason not to say that to your fan base today.
Andy, let's go ahead and play that Jeff Saturday clip from yesterday. Okay. And feel free to set it up if I'm missing anything on it. But you find it relevant, and I can hear you out. You find it relevant because it's Jeff Saturday. And we know that he has some very close people high up in the Colts organization. I don't need to say the name, but certainly we all know who that person is. And Go ahead.
Yeah, well,
set it up
so,
any other way.
Yeah, so I actually heard this on JMV yesterday. So JMV was playing a part of this. We cut this down to what, Mark? 15 seconds or something like that. There was a 2-minute clip where it's Jeff Saturday and it's Dominique Foxworth. I forget, Stephen A's in there, and they're talking about Anthony Richardson. And Jeff Saturday's going through all of the, it's been a purgatory since Andrew Luck left. And he's explaining, hey, if you bench him for this, I get it. But the flip side is what we've been talking about. At some point, this guy needs to play so you know if he can play. So let's move all that aside because everyone has had that conversation. Here is the end of this conversation, and this is an hour and a half-ish, 2 hours-ish before the news comes out. And I think it's pretty clear here that Jeff Saturday let it out of the bag, and he knew he did it. He kind of tried to stop himself.
We all know it ain't. Everybody says talent equals tolerance. No. Success equals tolerance. Yeah. He is not successful. There ain't no tolerance. He'll be benched for a week. I guarantee. You know what I mean?
I'm in no position to argue with.
Right there, where he almost said, "I guarantee it," but he stopped short because then everyone would know, hey, is this going to happen? No, it's Jim Irsay or someone right there with Jim Irsay telling Jeff Saturday and everybody else, hey, this guy's going to be benched.
It's like he was an offensive lineman that got the football and then did what the Bears guy did with it on Sunday. He just fumbles it.
Or what the Giants did with their offensive line going for 2 against the Steelers, fumbling that away. Mark, can you play the guaranteed part, just like the back end of that? Again, listen to Jeff Saturday here.
He is not successful. There ain't no tolerance. He'll be benched for a week. I guarantee. You know what I mean?
I said to you to lead off the show, Andy, this is what I'm most curious about, because let's look at the parties involved that would have big says in this sort of decision. Jim Irsay, over the past week, what has happened? He watched all of his favorite people come back in his building and the induction into the Ring of Honor for Dallas Clark.
It's a great point.
It's an emotional moment.
Sure,
he
Manning's
gets obsessed
back.
with it.
Sure.
He gets caught up in it. The Colts won the game. I would argue it was an ugly win, but they won the game. Then what happens? They go play the most important divisional game of the season. Those games always rank very highly in the eyes of Jim Irsay. If you win your division, what does that mean? That means home playoff game. What does that mean? That means more money in the pockets of Jim Irsay. What happens? The Colts lose. What happens within that game? To a lot of NFL old school people, one of the more embarrassing moments they've seen in that quarterback, the guy with the C on his chest, he taps out. So that, to me, would be embarrassing and frustrating Jim Irsay. Okay, let's go now to the next rung of the ladder. Chris Ballard. The man preaches leadership, quarterback leadership, locker room, more than any other, I think, GM that I've heard. He holds it to the nth degree. Okay, did Richardson ruffle that in his actions on Sunday? Okay, let's go to the next one. Shane Steichen. He has practiced accountability. I've gone over the names already, whether it be poor play, whether it be, a little bit off the field, Tony Brown, Isaiah McKenzie late in the season, at different levels in the, 15 months Shane Steichen's been head coach, they've done that. And then go to the locker room. Ryan Kelly's quotes, Zaire Franklin's quotes. They are very much, he can't do that. We like the kid.
Right.
We love how he plays.
Right.
Stylistically, he plays hard.
Well,
and
every former NFL guy has said the exact same thing.
He threw a 300-pounder off on that play, but you just can't do that. There's a dozen of us that are asked to play every snap, every game, and we don't tap out. And so when you think about all of that, is this something to where it is a punishment? Is it a 1-week punishment? And again, my tone will be a lot different if it's a 1-week punishment than if it's Joe Flacco for the rest of the season. Because I said this yesterday, I see no good in playing Flacco for the rest of the year. NFL practice is so overblown for a backup quarterback. He's not getting meaningful reps in those areas. And then if you want to nitpick Flacco, again, in the last 7 seasons of football, he's had 1 winning year. Everyone brings up Cleveland last season. Andy, he walked into Cleveland with a 7-3 football team, 7-4 football team, and the number 1 ranked defense in the NFL. Joe Flacco's not walking into a 7-4 football team right now with the number 1 ranked defense in the NFL.
He's definitely not doing
Cleveland
that.
Cleveland won games with Watson last year and P.J. Walker and Dorian Thompson-Robinson. It's not like they didn't win games with, inept quarterback play, and he's 8-16 in his last 24 starts. Richardson, for everything you want to say about Richardson, the Colts are 5-5 with him as a starter. And so, I just don't understand watching the same movie with a different lead actor for the rest of the season, like Minshew, like Wentz, like Matt Ryan, like Phillip Rivers, like Jacoby Brissett. where that gets you as a franchise. And I half jokingly, half seriously said this in the opening segment. I'm for both sides of the aisle here. If you are done with Richardson, then play him. And if he stinks, you get a higher draft pick. And if you like him and you think there's more there, he's about to be exposed to great unscripted, big-time opponents, big-time atmospheres, big-time opposing quarterbacks, exactly the stuff that he can't sniff when he's sitting there throwing 8 passes in a Thursday practice.
If I made you choose, which do you think it is? Because, listen, I can give you context. I can give you stats that show how bad Anthony Richardson has been. But I don't know if that is the reason or not. Like, that is what confuses me, why I think tomorrow's show is going to be a little bit different than today's show. Today, we still have confusion. It is up to Shane Steichen to go up there, and quite frankly, I hate saying it, to tell us the truth. I mean, I don't know any other way to say it.
Again, I don't know if they will say this, but do they feel like he is just not living up to the quarterback standard of everything that goes into that position? Not just the tapping out.
Right.
Everything that goes into playing quarterback in the NFL, having the C on your chest. You know, back when Richardson was drafted, part of the can he throw the football accurately questions that I had was, can you handle being an NFL quarterback? There is so much that comes with that. And again, I don't think they would be candid enough to say that today, but do you feel like this is a wake-up call in that area of whatever, Monday through Saturday, he's not preparing to the level that we would like him to? I thought we saw immaturity from him on the field and off the field Sunday, and that's not something I've said, Mondays after games with him. So is that there? Does sitting cure that? Does it help that? Because there's no past precedent in the NFL, Andy, none, that a quarterback has been asked to start as a rookie for his team. He's been benched. He's returned to that team, and it's worked out. Joel A. Erickson brought up the names of Alex Smith and Rex Grossman. Alex Smith had a new head coach in that time frame, and he suffered a big injury. Rex Grossman? Really?
Well, hey, made a Super Bowl.
Sorry,
sexy
to our
Rexy
Bloomington
Mark.
South folks, but I mean,
look at Mark shake his head over there. That's his guy. Grew up with Rex Grossman.
I did. I had nightmares still.
Again, we have answers of some quarterbacks going elsewhere,
sure,
and it happening, but
but that takes years
with that
Darnold's
team.
Been
so
years.
Why, if it is he needs a breather, he needs to rest, whatever, he needs to watch Flacco play quarterback for 2 months? Why the 180? Why? Because Steichen, Ballard, and Irsay, all of them were on the same page, adamant. From the moment he was drafted, he needs to play. He needs to play. He needs the reps. You can't script those moments. Practice only does you so much. We watched him in training camp. He threw the ball fine. He was like 65%. He had a nice increase in training camp practices. He was, he looked like a fine quarterback. Didn't throw many picks outside of Julian Blackmon making crazy plays. That was it. And now all of a sudden in these game moments, it's been a lot different.
Yeah, I mean, again, they need to tell us because there's a part of me that wonders, do they have buyer's remorse? I mean, there is a part of me that wonders if you're Shane Steichen and you're trying to win football games, and I want to play, Mark, tee up that Adam Schefter sound. I want to play that here in just a second. And you're trying to win football games. Anthony Richardson has made, at times, he has made a lot of losing plays. And if that's the point, if it's, hey, on third down, he is the worst quarterback in the last 25 years. I mean, he is that bad on third down. That's probably, honestly, what bothers me the most about Anthony Richardson is his inefficiency on third down. But if you say, I can't run him, he gets injured, or he fumbles. I mean, he's got 9 fumbles, hasn't lost all of them in a year and a half. If you say he's not Jalen Hurts, we thought he was Jalen Hurts, but maybe there's buyer's remorse, he's not Jalen Hurts. That's one thing. Accountability with taking yourself out of the game is another thing. And listen, I know fans mostly feel with what I'm about to say, and I'm making fun of myself, okay, here a little bit. And that is, I like to drink beer, okay? And because of that, I'm not the thinnest guy in the world. So if I came in here and was harping on you guys on losing weight, you would look at me and say, Andy, what the hell are you talking about? That's how I feel about Jim Irsay and Chris Ballard telling me about accountability.
1,000%.
When Chris Ballard has none.
Right.
I mean, the other side of this, if Anthony Richardson, and this is probably honestly my second biggest take today would be if Anthony Richardson either cannot play at a high level in the NFL, okay, or they can't develop Anthony Richardson and maybe somebody else, maybe Jim Harbaugh or somebody else can, okay, Or if he's not mature enough, okay, to be a starting quarterback and be a leader of men in the locker room, then that falls directly on Chris Ballard. How would that not fall on Chris Ballard? We talk about accountability. I mean, his lifeline to keep his job was, I'm going to go get a very green quarterback in Anthony Richardson. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, Nick asked this, what if Irsay is evaluating Ballard, wants to see where his team is without the development of AR? I would argue, what's been the evaluation for the last 5 years, Nick?
Yeah, but I mean, don't we know where this team? I mean, we know what this team's about, right?
Well, yeah, but haven't we seen these evaluations for the last 5 years with different levels of Band-Aid quarterback? Like, to me, Band-Aid quarterback is the ultimate accepting of mediocrity in the NFL. It's the cop-out. It's the easy way out. It's the you are afraid of swinging for the fences. You just want to sit with the bat on your shoulders and hope and pray that you walk to first base. Because when you look at the AFC, look who has been at the end of the AFC rung. Look at who has been in the AFC Championship games.
Every single year.
It's Mahomes, it's Lamar, it's Burrow, it's Allen. Those are the guys. And before that, it was the Bradys and the Mannings and whatever, Rivers randomly. Like, those, I mean, Tannehill is a flash in a pan. That happens once in a generation. Like,
Blake Bortles is a flash in a pan.
Those things don't happen on a route in this conference. And right now, those quarterbacks aren't going anywhere. Those quarterbacks are still there, and I would argue C.J. Stroud is knocking on the door.
Yeah.
So those are the types of swings that you have to take. I know we're going to play this Schefter audio. I wanted to make sure that I said, as much as I can't stand Schefter at times, and I probably don't like the man, if I could be totally honest, I don't think he says things just randomly. Like, he's going to say something here with McAfee
I would agree.
In regard to the tapping out, and I don't think he says that just because he has nothing else to say and he wants a throwaway line at the end. I think people are telling him those things. Here was Adam Schefter yesterday with McAfee.
You know what the amazing part about this is this morning I got a call that this was happening. And I reached out to a couple of people to confirm. And I spoke to some people on other teams. And when I said, hey, my sense is that they're benching Anthony Richardson, the reaction I got from some very smart people was like, of course they're benching him. Like, it wasn't even an option.
Okay.
That, I mean, I couldn't believe how strong people were. And so when I heard that, I'm like, okay, this is happening. This is happening. And, you know, you're waiting for confirmation. They met as an organization this morning to go over it. They obviously broke up those meetings. My understanding is that they have informed each quarterback. And now the move has been made. And it's a seismic move on a lot of levels, because you're benching the former third overall pick, who now becomes the second quarterback in that draft class to be benched, Bryce Young, number one overall pick, now Anthony Richardson. And yes, Pat, I do think it has to do with the tap out. Now, I don't know that.
Yeah, and that's where the clip cut off that McAfee put online. I think what interests me is not only the tap out thing or the seismic, I know that's a word that is a buzzword, but when you talk to people in the NFL, and I think this is what you're getting, KB, with a lot of these former players, is, and I think it's two dueling things. It's the poor play and taking himself out of the game. Of course, they're benching him. I feel like there is a big split here. And I talked about this, what was it, yesterday? I talked about this yesterday, that this is now a divisive topic. This is now a topic, guys, of one side believes, yes, you put Anthony Richardson's ass on the bench. He's not playing well. He's a terrible third down quarterback. He's not taking care of the football. His completion percentage is garbage. And there's that side. And then there's the other side of, you need to go play the guy to understand, you had a plan. You need to stick to the plan. You need to play the guy. I found the most interesting thing yesterday was that right there, of Schefter saying, I talked to smart people in the NFL, and basically in unison they said, of course the Colts are going to bench Anthony Richardson. I did not expect for that to be the case.
Go back to the Ryan Kelly audio that we played yesterday. Zaire Franklin's quotes are something I would say very similar. I mean, those are arguably the two biggest voices. Zaire pretty much said, like, dude, just lie in the postgame.
Well, that's what you said. That's what I said. Yeah. Like, that was us on Monday. Lie.
And added, like, that's not the example that you put out there. And Zaire prefaced by saying, look, week one against Houston, he carried us for large portions of that game. And Zaire was like, we, meaning the defense, we're struggling out there, and you're almost willing us in the fourth quarter to get back into that game. But I just think you have heard locker room preaching and what that means to the nth degree from this regime, mainly Chris Ballard. I can't get away from that in that impacting this decision. And again, I think it's the organization talking out of both sides of their mouth because I don't think accountability is preached at the very top of it. But in regards to this certain moment and the embarrassment level that I think Jim Irsay probably felt in it, there's a lot of voices that would have gone into this decision-making, whether it be Irsay, Ballard, Sykin, the leadership council of that locker room, and I think all of them would have said, we can't have that. You might lose a lot. And again, you can debate that, and are we overblowing one play? You know, Brian Flores had comments yesterday, the Vikings DC, of like, did you guys watch the play? He's like, he sheds a 300-pounder. Flores is like, I got tired watching the play. So, you know, is there an element of we're overblowing, frankly?
But that doesn't matter.
One play, but I
it doesn't
think
matter.
In the decision makers of the Colts, those people view that one play as pretty darn damning to the message that it sends to the rest of their locker room. Now, again, are we going to get clarity on that? Because Shane Steichen said no publicly on Monday. Shane Steichen said a lot on Monday. Mm-hmm. He was more open than I've ever heard him. But specifically to that question, he said no. Why? Does he want to protect Anthony Richardson? I guess. I don't know why he would maybe not say that necessarily. So, I don't know. Is it a different tune coming up here in 4 hours? We'll find out.
Stephen Holder, he's coming up next. Should be fun. I know he'll have an opinion on it from ESPN.com. What does he think of the benching of Anthony Richardson? Hour number 2. And we'll take calls after Stephen. 239-1070. Hour number 2 coming up here. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
The Colts are benching Anthony Richardson.
Anthony Richardson has been benched by head coach Shane Steichen.
And now the move has been made, and it's a seismic move on a lot of levels.
It is fair to say that it's better right now for this team in this moment to have Joe Flacco as their starting quarterback. Yes, that is fair because Joe is right now a more consistent player.
They've reached the point where they feel like taking a little bit of a back seat might actually benefit him long term.
It's also at the same time necessity that he plays. He has not played much football since high school, let alone college. He has to develop. He can't Trey Lance this. He can't go years and years and years without playing football. The only way at that spot to get better is being in those game environments. He's playing catch-up reps-wise.
Well, as much as I would love to lead off with Stephen Holder about his favorite Halloween costume growing up, I feel like the need is there to probably focus on a little bit more important matters at hand. Stephen, as always, thank you for the time. His latest win now, Colts bench quarterback Anthony Richardson for Joe Flacco. Stephen, let me start here. On Monday, Shane Steichen said the tapping out had nothing to do with the potential switch at quarterback then. Do you still believe that?
I'm conflicted on that, to be completely honest with you. I want to believe what he says, but I don't know what to make of it. It's all very interesting, I guess, is what I'm saying, the timing. I don't know if that was Anthony Richardson's worst game. I know statistically people might say it was. I just think from an optics perspective, I don't know that that was his worst game, right? So it is interesting, I guess, when you take that into account. All right, there have been other opportunities perhaps to bench him and say, hey, he needs to take some time. They did it this week, though, and I think that, like I said, I don't think the timing can be ignored. I am not assigning blame to that issue, but I'm not ignoring it either.
Yeah, and the reason why I am also not doing the same as this, Stephen, he didn't think about benching him at halftime. He comes out and he's 8 of 17 in the second half. I would argue the reason they moved the football was largely because of his better play. And really, when they didn't move it, I didn't think it was necessarily because of him. Some penalties, poor offensive line play. And then, as you get further away from the game, it's not as bad as you thought, et cetera, the old adage. Again, the film, I don't think is as bad. It wasn't great. I mean, come on. It wasn't a good game for the passing offense, but still. But what has grown? Well, guys in your locker room talking about the play. Ryan Kelly, Zaire Franklin, other guys. And that's why I just give it a little bit more credence, not to mention in the immediate aftermath of the game, who knows how much Shane Steichen has talked to Jim Irsay and Chris Ballard.
Absolutely, for sure. And I do think we have to operate under the assumption that the tapping out was a big conversation in the locker room. Certainly, I was in Houston, and after the game, and talking to guys, look, I will admit we didn't hit it that hard because we didn't really understand what was happening in the immediate aftermath, right? I went down to the locker room under the assumption that something happened to him, thinking, okay, well, I think he got the wind knocked out of him. There has to be some explanation. I'm sure it's not just he's just tapped out of the game. So when we learned very abruptly that it was something else, we were kind of caught off guard, at least I was. And then what happened in the locker room is that word had not really even trickled down to other players. So we really didn't get a true sense of what the perception of it was in the immediate aftermath of the game. And we have not talked to players. We haven't been in the locker room, at least, since then. So today will be an interesting day. But my point is, without knowing how that information manifested itself in the locker room, it's hard to assign a level of credit to where that played into the decision, if that makes sense. So I do think it probably mattered some, at least. It had to. I do think I was certainly a little surprised by the amount of legs that story had. And I'm sure the Colts were taken aback by it as well. I'm not saying people were wrong to have that reaction. I'm saying that story had a lot of staying power for 2 full days. It was a lot. So I don't know. This is a sort of an unprecedented thing. It's uncharted territory for everybody.
Stephen Holder, ESPN.com, with us here on this Wednesday on The Fan. He joins us, as always, on the Payless Liquors hotline. I'm trying to think of a way to ask you, is there one narrative that's better than another? Because we're stuck here like you are, Stephen. I don't know if it's for poor play. I don't know if this is essentially a suspension. Is one narrative for Anthony Richardson better or worse than the other?
Good question. I don't think so. Because, frankly, all anyone will ever remember about Anthony Richardson until he does something in the NFL, something notable. The only thing anyone will ever remember is one of two things. He got benched after 10 games or he tapped out of the game. Right now, that is his entire reputation, and it sucks for him. And a lot of it is his own doing, right? I mean, he's the one that tapped out of the game. He could have played better, certainly. But I do kind of feel terrible for him to a degree, and I just think it's unfortunate, I would say. That's really his reputation right now. Even maybe more so beyond Indianapolis, but even here to a degree, right? I mean, what do we really know? Those are the things that we know for sure. And that's really unfortunate. And I just think back to draft night in 2023, last year, draft night in April, all the optimism and all the hope that was invested in this kid. There's still some hope, I imagine, but it's hard to really see it today. It's just sad all around, and I hope there's another chapter to this thing. But this is just a really unfortunate story all around right now for everybody involved.
That is 1,000% true. Stephen Holder is with us here from ESPN. Colts back to work today. Their first practice. Shane Steichen will meet the media coming up here in a little over 3 hours. What questions do you have for Shane, Stephen?
Well, okay. Well, you mentioned my story just now, and everyone has done the same thing here. But I went back and I looked at the narrative after they drafted him, and they were adamant. He's got to play. He's got to play. He's got to play. Period. That's how he's going to get better. Jim Irsay, Shane Steichen, Chris Ballard, all saying the same thing, the exact same lines. This is as an abrupt a 180 turn as you can make. This is the complete opposite. In fact, Shane Steichen was saying this even just a few weeks ago. Anthony's our quarterback. He's got to grow. We've got to be patient. You did the exact opposite here. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm saying I need an explanation. Okay, where did this decision originate? When did this seed get planted in your mind that this was maybe something you needed to do? And I think the other thing is, in the long term, what can Anthony Richardson do, to regain the faith? Because it's one thing to say, we still think he has we still think he has good football in him in the future. Okay, but are you going to give him a starting job and an opportunity to prove that? I mean, after this, are you really prepared to do that? I don't know. Like, how does Anthony Richardson get back into, at least with this organization, how does he reclaim this opportunity that he had that was taken away? I don't know how that happens. I would love to know that.
In your conversations with, I guess, probably mostly people affiliated with the team yesterday, did you get the impression this is Joe Flacco for the rest of the season, or this is Joe Flacco for 1 week?
So that answer was not given explicitly, but my impression was that this is not a 1 week decision. It was explained to me that he needs some time. He could benefit from sitting for a while. The conversations were not within the context of 1 week. These were, in my interpretation, they were talking about it from a longer perspective, presumably the rest of the season. So, yes, I do anticipate this will likely be the rest of the season unless something changes.
Stephen Holder with us here, ESPN.com. Those are some big words. Stephen, that's what we've been kicking around. Is this a 1 or a 2 game thing? Is this something that is going to last the rest of the season? In your story, I mean, there is a, 17, 18% chance better of them making the postseason with Joe Flacco other than Anthony Richardson. What if they, I know this is a what if, I'm just throwing it out there. This is probably what we'll talk about next, Stephen, but what if they come out today and it's like, we have a better chance right now to make the playoffs with Joe Flacco, and everyone around here keeps throwing how we don't make the playoffs. We're going to try to make it, and the best way to do so is with Joe Flacco.
No, I mean, that's actually a very defensible position. I don't think anybody would say that's insane or surprising. They probably won't say it that explicitly, but if they did, I don't think I would have a problem with it because it's probably true. I mean, true to a degree, right? I don't think that it's a game changer necessarily if Joe Flacco plays. We'll see. The next 4 games will tell us a lot. But the point is, I do think that is certainly true, at least to some degree.
Stephen, last
the
one.
Question that,
Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, the question, though, then becomes, what is more important to prioritize? This is a rhetorical question. Is it more important to prioritize the future or the present? I don't think this is a team that's going to make a deep Super Bowl run, no matter who the quarterback is. I don't know that anybody in Indianapolis feels that way. That being said, getting to the playoffs, anything can happen. I do agree with that, and that's not to be ignored. But the bigger question for this franchise in the longer term, in the grander scheme, is what is the solution at quarterback? Right now, the 2025 quarterback situation is as bad as the 2019 quarterback situation. That's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that, as sad of a reality as that is to admit. Stephen Holder with us, ESPN. Stephen, last one from me. And again, Stephen's latest win now. Colts bench Anthony Richardson for Joe Flacco. The top of the organization and Jim Irsay. If you think back to the last week for Jim Irsay, he watches all of his greats come together for the Dallas Clark Ring of Honor. They don't play good in that game, the Colts. They did win, but they certainly didn't play good. Then they go down to Houston, another extremely disappointing divisional loss, which has become, I would argue, rather routine for this franchise over the last half dozen years or so. Divisional embarrassment, it maybe continues. Certainly you have an old football school historian in Irsay watch a quarterback tap out, do something that we really have never seen in the NFL. The leadership standard, I don't want to get into Carson Wentz in that leadership, but I can't totally ignore how Irsay looked at that. I don't think it's necessarily apples to apples, but still, I can't totally write that off. Irsay involvement, do you think there's none of it? Do you think there's some of it? Is that a question you have?
So it is a question I have, yes. It was a question I've had since Monday when I heard the change in tone. And so I've reached out to Jim. We had a little bit of an exchange, but I haven't been able to nail him down. So I don't know. So that's the first question. Is it, and do I suspect it? We'll see. But I do think what you laid out there is very important, and I do think that Irsay is old school. Okay, and I doubt very seriously he had a positive reaction to what Anthony did. I think that the Carson Wentz reaction, the comments about Andrew Luck and the 4 inches between his ears. I don't know that anything's necessarily wrong with those statements. I'm not saying that. I understand to a degree what he was saying. But my point is, I think that mental aspect and being a leader and all the things that come with that are very important to Jim Irsay. I mean, he has made that very clear, I think, through his previous statements. So, yeah, I think the question is very much appropriate, and we'll just have to see if he ever clarifies.
Stephen, great work yesterday. Thank you as always for the time, and we will see you later this morning.
All right, looking forward to it. See you guys.
Stephen Holder, Payless Liquors Hotline.
Okay, so two things. Let's take some calls. Next segment, 239-1070. Obviously, we want fan reaction, and we were going to do this, and we have some time here before we get to a check down. Stephen talking there seems to think that, right now, this is Joe Flacco's job, and it's Joe Flacco's team. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this through the prism that some of his play on the field, Anthony Richardson, his play on the field has a lot to do with that, because I have a feeling that, I don't know, I have a feeling that's going to be the rhetoric today. It's going to be more on the field stuff than taking himself out of the game on Sunday. And then on top of that is, can he come back from this, and how, if this ends up happening, how do the Colts sell us Anthony Richardson next year?
Yeah.
How are you going to do that?
Honestly,
because Flacco's not going to be back. You're going to be bringing in, you're going to be bringing in Daniel Jones or someone to be the backup quarterback because you think the backup might have to play.
My overwhelming thought in the last 24 hours, and this is selfish, has been how awkward is next year's training camp going to be?
No kidding. Wow, you're going to have a quarterback competition.
Do they put Richardson on all the marketing materials?
No, they put Jonathan Taylor and DeForest Buckner. Michael Pittman Jr., Josh Downs. Zaire Franklin.
To that point, okay, let's play this out. It's Flacco for the rest of 2024. You have not gone, and we'll just play in the luck post-retirement era. You have not gone 5 straight years without a division title, 5 straight years without a playoff win. The utter embarrassment, I'd argue one of the most embarrassing years in franchise history of 2022, of Matt Ryan to Nick Foles to Sam Ehlinger to Jim Irsay, hiring Jeff Saturday to the biggest blown lead in NFL history. You didn't go through all of that to have a 39-year-old Joe Flacco starting 18 months after that season ended. Like that, I can't get away from that. You don't, part of the great thing about the NFL is it offers this element of the teams that suck, you can get hope.
Right.
And
it's a good point.
And to bet on the greenest hope of all time, and then to pull the plug very early. And we can get into some of these stats, and I know people will rip me for this, but look at Josh Allen's first 10 games. Look at the early careers of, guys like, Joe Burrow. Hell, look at, I don't even want to mention Peyton, but if you can point to a lot of quarterbacks that have had struggles, and to me, Buffalo and Philly and the Hurts and the Allen examples are decent ones, because those are comps to Anthony Richardson, and those teams made the playoffs the year before they drafted those guys. I think, and yet they didn't bail early in those young quarterbacks' careers. I mean, think about that. You just made the playoffs, and you're telling your franchise and your fan base, hey, we're still going to take a bit of a project, Allen more than Hurts, a bit of a project at quarterback. They didn't bail early, and they are now reaping some of the fruits of it. I'd argue Buffalo more than Philadelphia. So
yeah, but they're well-run organizations. That's the other side of it.
That is just what I cannot get away from, is like, wow, you don't suffer through all of that pain to go Band-Aid again. And be stuck in NFL purgatory again. Because to me, you either play. If you play Richardson, you get to the answer quicker. And I think that's what you want. You want clarity. You want him in these moments. To me, going to Flacco the rest of the season, Andy, that just extends the Chris Ballard leash. That extends the Anthony Richardson leash.
I know. Can I play you this piece of sound from Warren Sharp real quick, or do you want to do it on the other end? Because we're up against it here. We still got to get to a morning check down. We have a full bank of calls as well. Mark, let's play this. It's about 50 seconds. Just to give context on the play of Anthony Richardson. Warren Sharp, he's a numbers guy. I tend to like him. There's some NFL people that don't. Now, he put out yesterday about a 13-minute clip breaking down what he thinks Shane Steichen is thinking if they are benching Anthony Richardson because of play. And he mentioned, they ran him last year and he got injured, and they've tried to run him, this year and last year. And with that, he has fumbled the football. And so when we use someone like Jalen Hurts as an example, Jalen Hurts was not injured over 2 years. He missed 2.5, 3 games, and he had no fumbles. He was not fumbling the football and turning the football over the way that Anthony Richardson has. Take a listen. We can react. We'll get to a morning check down, then we'll get to some calls.
Anthony Richardson has played one full game where he completed more than 50% of his pass attempts, and that was his first game as a rookie where defenses don't know what's coming to him. After that very first start, in 6 full games, Richardson has never completed more than 50% of his passes. That is insane. In year 2, this year, he's had 133 pass attempts and is completing 44%. I went back to 2000. There have been 112 quarterbacks with at least 130 pass attempts in year 2 of their career. Richardson is 110 out of 112 in completion rate. The only quarterbacks below him were Achilles Smith and Mike McMahon. The only quarterbacks better than him but still sub 50%, remember he's at 44%, were J.P. Lossman and Tim Tebow. Now think about this. On third downs, he's completing number 112 out of 112 is where he ranks in completion rate on third downs. 35% completion rate on third down. No second-year quarterback has been worse in the last 25 years. How do you win like that?
I think that's the other side. If we're going to take it from a football viewpoint and take the long-term maturation of Anthony Richardson, all the long-term stuff aside, all the tapping out aside, move all of that aside, even though we can't for just a second, I wonder if the rhetoric today is going to be football stuff. I'm Shane Steichen, and I don't believe right now this guy gives us the best chance to win, and that's what it's about in the NFL for myself and for my general manager.
So why the 180?
It's a great question, and that's the question. Well, I mean, the 180 is they've seen him play. They did not. It goes back to my theory. I know I keep saying it. They did not think that Richardson would be this bad at times. They thought they could win games, but Richardson, even in losses, would provide 4 or 5 plays where it wouldn't matter that you lost because AR threw a 65-yard pass to Alec Pierce in the second quarter, which is exactly what happened game 1.
To me, that's where the ignorant nature comes into play because Josh Allen was this bad. There have been guys that have been this bad early in their career. So, to think that all of a sudden he was going to walk in here and be 65% or whatever percentage you want to throw at him, and that to me is where I think it's a little bit ignorant on the Colts side of it. And this gets into a conversation we had yesterday of I've never seen the franchise or the fan base in a more awkward state.
Agreed. I agree.
You haven't won a division title in 10 years. You've won 1 playoff game in that span. People are foaming at the mouth to win. The Pacers got back to winning. Hell, if you're a Fever fan, you finally got back to winning. IU football's freaking winning. You want to taste that. Purdue just had their greatest college basketball season of all time. Notre Dame football has been on a nice run lately. You want to get back to that level, yet you've drafted the greenest quarterback in the history of the NFL, and you're asking everybody to be patient.
The scary part is you don't trust Ballard specifically and Jim Irsay. They came up with a plan, and they came up with a faulty plan. I mean, that's the nuclear option here. Is their plan has been their plan and what they thought has been totally wrong and totally off this entire time. Want to do a morning check down?
Let's do a quick morning check down.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by Marion University Football, pursuing another NAIA championship this season. Don't miss the on-campus action at Ascension St. Vincent Field. Visit NUKnights.com for tickets.
All right, we'll go quick here. No Colt sound, obviously. The coordinator spoke before, all of this happened. Poor Jim Bob Cooter was setting up there. So he was not fooled yesterday, though. I'll tell him Shane Steichen will meet with the media today at about 11 a.m. We'll have that sound as we go here on The Fan. Quickly, tonight, it's Pacers and Celtics down the street here in Cambridge. Our coverage on The Fan beginning at 6:30. KB, Boston, a 7.5-point favorite in this one. Miles Turner, questionable with an ankle injury tonight.
Yeah, that obviously is a big one. Boston looks to be healthy. They haven't really been tested on the road at Washington, at Detroit so far. I'm very curious to see how the Pacers respond to that one. World Series will have a Game 5. The bats for the Yankees certainly came alive. They had one of the most psychoist fan behaviors I've ever seen from a guy with the last name of Capobianco. I swear that was... They just plugged that last name in. They're like, AI, generate a New York last name for me. We'll plug that in
it's so great.
To the Daily News.
And his buddy wearing the sunglasses while it's nighttime out and raining.
Garrett Cole, Jack Flaherty, Game 5 today. That's really the only thing that matters.
Yeah, that's all that matters. Let's take a break. Coming up on the other side, your calls, 239-1070. Get in if you want to talk about Anthony Richardson being benched. It's a Wednesday, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Thanks for tuning in. This is the Wake Up Call. KB and Andy here on a busy Wednesday morning. My question is why? Joe Flacco gives you the better chance to win now. Anthony Richardson, I guess pun intended, needs to breathe. Or discipline for tapping out. That's where I sit here on this Wednesday morning. It's hard, Andy, for me to come with like strong convictions until like I think I get a little bit of clarity on that aspect of it. And then the awkward nature of if this is a 1 week benching, what if Joe Flacco throws for 280 and 3 touchdowns against Brian Flores on Sunday Night Football?
They win in Minnesota. They're 5-4, and they're the talk of the NFL, and Joe Flacco's the talk of the NFL.
Flacco's carried off the field like he's Rudy.
You know, one thing I said last week was, Mark, you were out, but my point of taking the Colts was they're going to be on Monday morning and Sunday night, Monday morning. They win this game, they'll be the talk of the NFL. Little did I know that they would be one of the talks of the NFL for a completely different reason.
What's proper discipline for a quarterback tapping out?
Yeah, to me, it's not benching him for a game. To me, I am of the belief now that
just interject quickly.
Okay, go ahead.
I feel like every ex-NFL player,
I know,
borderline every ex-athlete, and I mean, I've talked to former Colts players.
Sure.
I mean, all of them in the last 24 hours.
Oh, they hate it. Yeah.
They would say benching is a worthy punishment.
Yeah, I would say since they believe in the sanctity of the locker room, that's something that you could do some tough love in the locker room. I wonder if this is a culmination. I think that would be the worry, that this is not a one-off, that Anthony Richardson has done something or not done something.
It's kind of the cherry on top.
For the last few weeks, that this is, the straw that broke the camel's back. I know that's a pukey cliche, but that's the case. And then, we just had Stephen Holder on in the 8 o'clock hour. If you missed any of it, we'll have it up on the podcast center at 1075thefan.com. But, I thought the best part of that interview was actually closer to the end, where you ask him, do you think this is a 1 week thing, or that this is now Joe Flacco's team here going forward, even perhaps the rest of the season? And he thinks it's the rest. I mean, he thinks it's the rest of the season, or for at least a little while here, that this is going to be Joe Flacco's team. So I think as we go, we talk about this, that maybe there is some poor play that is mixed in on this, that they want to win, that they want to win now, that they do have a much better percentage chance of making the postseason when you look around the AFC. But I want to know the why as much as you do. I feel like I'm a little bit stuck in neutral here. Does that make sense? Like, I don't know which way to pivot. Is it because he tapped himself out of the game and that means so much to guys in the locker room? Or is it the fact that he has been, at times, a struggling quarterback? And I'm sure Shane Steichen looks at his offense and says, all these things that I want to do, I can't do so many of them because of Anthony Richardson.
The Ryan Kelly clip that we played yesterday, I think, stands out to a lot of people. I think you talk to former NFL players, NFL people. An offensive lineman saying that about his quarterback, you don't get that.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
And I thought Kelly was candid, honest, and I thought he walked a very fine line very well, if I could be totally honest about it. Mark, if we have that clip, it might be worth bringing up one more time here. But that clip, again, that's your captain, that's your longest tenured Colt. And again, you can insert question. The offensive line certainly did not help out Anthony Richardson in a substantial manner on Sunday. But that's the clip for me, Andy, of like, you don't hear that often in the NFL.
Well, and then you add on top of it the promo we're running, the Shane Steichen saying he needed a breather. That also wasn't exactly backing his quarterback very much. That was a snarky way of saying, hey, AR checked himself out of the game, and we're not too happy about it.
One more time, Ryan Kelly, this is on Monday, describing Anthony Richardson and that play.
Yeah, I mean, I think we had a conversation about it, and I think he knows it's not the standard that that he needs to play up to, and the rest of the team holds him to. And I'll kind of leave the conversation that we had at that. But I'm sure he's going to take some criticism for that. It's just rightfully so, right? I mean, it's a tough look, but I'm also he's out there giving it all for his team, right? And it's not always pretty sometimes. An offensive lull the last couple of weeks, just having a hard time getting going at times. I thought we did some good things in the game, but if anybody ever questions how hard he plays, I don't think that's the case. I mean, if you watch his film, surely, we didn't move the ball effectively at times, but I mean, he's giving it everything for his teammates. So he's young. I'm sure it's a learning moment for him, and I'll leave it at that.
Brian Kelly's saying that publicly. What's he saying privately to Shane Steichen?
I think it's fair.
Zaire Franklin utters that's not the example you put out there. I mean, these are the guys. These are the voices, the captains. You can go ahead and insert, hey, I'd like better play from those two.
Sure,
I can hear fans right now that are saying that.
That's not the point, though.
But they are in the ear of Shane Steichen more than arguably Anthony Richardson. I mean, those are the heads of your leadership council. That's why I bring up the why.
All right, let's take some phone calls. 239-1070. Darren leads us off here on this Wednesday, talking Anthony Richardson. Darren, good morning. Fire away, buddy.
Thanks. Question, what do you guys think about his work ethic? You never hear anything about him being first in, first out. I know he came back from the injury, but you listen to that interview you guys did with Grant Stewart. That guy wanted it. Richardson, to me, seems like somebody like the guy in Oakland that bombed, that he has the big arm, the big contract, and doesn't seem to be prepared for everything. And you just never hear anything about that. And also on one of the telecasts, they talked about all these guys, his buddies from Miami or whatever, all being in there. I just think he's not focused 100% on his job. He should be in there all the time. And I think the Colts are going to piss away Steichen's tenure. I think he's going to be a great coach if he has good play from a quarterback.
Darren, thank you for the call. Andy, I said to you probably an hour ago, is he living up to the quarterback standard?
Right.
Sunday was very immature from him as a player. I would argue the post-game comments were very immature from him as well. I don't – let me say this. I've heard both things in regards to Richardson and the quarterback standard that's necessary. I don't think it's a dude strolling in at 9:30.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there are some times it's like, hey, man, this is a big bleeping deal.
He comes across entitled, but that also doesn't mean he's going to complete 35% of his passes on third down. Does that make sense?
Right.
Like,
right,
I don't know if one leads to the other. I will say, go ahead. Finish your thoughts. Sorry.
I think Darren asks a very fair question, and honestly, it's a question that I think I will try to toss Shane Steichen's way.
It's a fair question
today because, again, that is such a big thing, and that's why, when he exited Florida, part of my thought was, okay, we're talking so much about his physical attributes on the field and his accuracy, this and that. Was 1 year enough to see if he can handle the quarterback moment? I mean, it's a big, big, big deal. Like, being a quarterback of an NFL franchise, it's tough to evaluate. I think there's gray area in it when you're looking at these college kids.
He didn't have to do that at Florida. He was on a bad Florida team.
So that's where I think that was almost as much projection as anything.
He wasn't under Nick Saban. Sorry,
youngest
he wasn't
quarterback to be drafted. I mean, all of these things, just became a young father. I mean, all of these things I feel like are stuff you just can't ignore.
That's why you hire Chris Ballard.
Sure, that's why you have a scouting staff.
Yeah, that's why you hire Chris Ballard. Right. Daniel up next here on the Fan 239-1070. Daniel, fire away, buddy.
Hey, good morning, fellas. Great show. Love your talking points here. I mean, obviously, Anthony Richardson is a struggling quarterback. You don't have to look very far to see that. Andy, you had a great question. You said, where do you want to pivot? Fellas, I think the pivot, Anthony Richardson has been taking his for 2 days now, going on 3, right? Deserved. But seriously, we can't give a free pass to Ballard here.
Agreed.
I mean, he is constantly coming at you, Bowen. If I got to hear it from Bowen, well, I'm telling you, I lay it out for him. Ask him to do us a favor, do like his QB. I'd love it if he'd tap out, go to the bench for a minute. This is the same old song and dance that we're going to see from Flacco. We've watched this, how many times? Holder was talking about it. We're going to be in the same position in 2025 that we were in 2019.
That's the scariest thought. Daniel, thank you for the call. That is my most frightening element of my brain over the last 18 hours is I can't get away from that, Andy. You don't go through the humiliation of 2022 to be here. And look, playing Flacco and getting you to 9-8 puts you right smack dab in the middle of quarterback purgatory.
Does maybe winning a playoff game do anything for you? I agree with you.
Maybe a little bit more.
Okay.
But again, I have said this for years, Andy. I am such a believer. If you want the 5 to 7 year window of sustained success, you have to have the franchise quarterback. You have, and I just did the AFC Championship quarterbacks with you last segment. Look at them. It's Mahomes, it's Allen, it's Burrow, it's those guys. It's Lamar, and it's about to be C.J. Stroud probably. in years to come. Like, those are the quarterbacks you have to have. You have to create that window. And that's why back in 2023, I said about freaking time that they did that. And you needed to take that swing, because when you get stuck in quarterback purgatory, you're in NFL hell. I've said that time and time again. To the Ballard point, this is why accountability means different things to different people in that organization. And that's very frustrating, because the accountability to Chris Ballard is Michael Jordan misses shots. The accountability to a lot of other guys is a cut or a bench. And that's very different than being compared to Michael Jordan and a blue chip GM and the greatest GM hire of the 21st century. And some of those other things.
Whatever rhetoric's been said. Lance, John, Brian, and Dave, hang on.
Is this a Jordan Is this a Jordan airball? Is that what this is?
I don't know what this is. I think it's beyond that. 239-1070.
Shot on Elo. Oh, it goes over the backboard.
Well,
Benny the Bull. It hits him.
It's Benny the Bull. What's the Cavs mascot?
Yeah,
was that in Gund-Arena? I can't remember.
Yeah, I was trying to picture. Yeah, probably. Benny the Bull probably wasn't even there.
We have loaded phone lines. Stay on hold. We'll keep cycling through them. We got you all the way to 10 o'clock. 239-1070. It's a Wednesday on the Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I thought some interesting comments from Vikings defensive coordinator Brian Flores, the man that will, I guess, now be throwing away the Richardson game plan and implementing one for Joe Flacco, certainly former head coach. We'll play that audio here upcoming in a bit. Andy, I'm a little nervous to do this.
You've been talking about doing this for like an hour and a half, so I think we should just go ahead and do it. By the way, we'll take calls here in a second and in the 9 o'clock hour, so stay on hold. Go ahead.
I put this in my story up on 1075thefan.com, so I figure we might as well mention it here. I would argue coming out of the draft, there was no player Anthony Richardson was comped more to than Josh Allen. Why? Similar size, similar playing style, and very similar college resume.
Yeah, I think that's the most important part is the resume.
Right, but I do think style-wise and size-wise, I mean, hell, Phillip Rivers is the same size as these guys, and obviously he doesn't play anywhere near like those two. So I did think that was an important reference point. Josh Allen did suffer an injury in his rookie season, missed about a month, but he ended up playing 12 games in that rookie year. Obviously right now all we have to go off of is 10 games. But just to throw some numbers at you. Completion percentage for Richardson, 50.2. Allen, 52.8. Yards per attempt, Richardson 7.1, Allen 6.5. You want to go to passing touchdowns, Richardson 7, Allen 10. Interceptions, Richardson 8, Allen 12. Passer rating, eerily similar, 68.8, 67.9. 68.8 for Richardson, 67.9 for Allen. Rushing yards, Allen definitely has had more through that early part, but the numbers, Andy, are so similar.
They really are. It's unbelievable.
It's eerie how close they are. Buffalo kept Allen in there. And if you want to look at Allen's even second season, it's not very pretty there either. It really took off that 2020 year is when his completion percentage really jumped. That's when they beat Indy in the playoff game, if you remember that season. And then obviously he's played at a pretty high level ever since then. Do you have any thought on a Josh Allen comp, or do you look at me and say, hey, can you list all the other quarterbacks that didn't work out?
I'm struggling because the reason I'm struggling is Josh Allen is used in a lot of comps.
But we used that in the comp when Richardson was drafted, and that's why I don't think I'm just plucking one out of the air.
I don't think you are. No, I don't think you are. I'm fine with it. I would say the only caveat I would say is Josh Allen, now we know, we're sitting here at 2024, almost 2025. Now we know he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. Now we know. I'm trying to think, and I have so many family and friends. I have a couple buddies that are Bills fans. I'm trying to think of what, when they brought in McDermott, and after a couple years, they obviously brought in Stephon Diggs to help out there.
Right.
And that Brian Dable. Yeah, and part of Allen's ascension has also made us say, well, the Bills are a really good organization. They're a well-run organization. That was not always the case. When they took Josh Allen, that was not the case. And that was, I was doing sports radio back in Louisville. That was a divisive pick because everyone was loving Josh Allen in the process and not Lamar Jackson in the process. And so we talked about it from that
Allen
viewpoint.
was a 7th overall pick for those that remember. Buffalo traded up twice.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, to get out. And again, Buffalo had made the playoffs the year prior.
Yeah.
They were kind of a surprise team to trade up. Now, Allen did start one more year at Wyoming than Richardson. Still not a ton of college starts, but he did start one more season. And I guess the question for me is this in regards to that comp. Buffalo had him play through it. The Colts are not having Richardson play through it. Where did Allen get the learning, and how much will Richardson get in watching? Because Richardson did watch.
Oh, he's watched a lot. He's watched a lot.
85% of last season. Does he need to watch more? Again, I find it hard to find any NFL precedent of a team start the rookie quarterback, bench the rookie quarterback, then go back to him and find success on that. And I was half joking, half serious when I said to you this offseason, I think it was one of those random July days. I was like, there's nothing on in the sports world. I almost feel like we all need to go back and either watch the Josh Allen rookie season or hell, even watch the Peyton Manning rookie season.
Right.
Like, we all just need to have a therapy session of like, Guys, it's about to look ugly with Anthony Richardson.
Right.
Do we all just need to, go back and watch? Because none of us watched Josh Allen's 2018. Hell, he was hurt in the game they played here.
They were 6-10 that season, by the way, his first year. Then they went 10-6, and then he took off the year after, and they've been a great team since.
And again, I know a lot of people will certainly say, hey, how dare you compare Josh Allen? He doesn't tap out, and he doesn't do this and do that.
He's a leader, right?
Right. And this was the comp. The Colts told us we needed to be patient. The Colts said he needed these reps. Buffalo stood true to their word. The Colts are not. My question, I guess for the Colts would be why?
Why?
Why do they feel like the watching is going to get him back on track versus the player he was comped to the most had the tough love of playing and living through it and having to live through these growing pains of ugly games, and yet they're now reaping the benefits.
Yeah, coming up at 9 o'clock, I actually want to hit on that. I want to hit on, can he come back from this, whether it's a benching for a game or, like Stephen Holder told us, he thinks it's going to be many games and potentially this could be Joe Flacco's team the rest of the season. 239-1070, Lance up next here on The Fan on this Wednesday. Lance, good morning.
Hey, guys. Great show. I just have a simple question here to you, to KB, basically. If you knew you had to evaluate him as a quarterback and he was so green, why didn't they not give him more reps in the preseason?
Yeah.
I mean, I know he's coming off an injury and everything, but he should have been getting 80% of those reps, and they should have evaluated him a lot better than they did, knowing what they had, and they didn't do it.
Yeah, Lance, I think it's a great point. I mean, I've always sided on more of the you need to play your starters in the preseason.
Appreciate it, Lance.
And, yeah, thank you for the call. And certainly I thought Richardson should have played more in the preseason.
I think they're just terrified he's going to be injured.
We have enough questions about Richardson being available.
Yeah.
Then shouldn't he play when he's healthy? I get where you're coming from, Andy, but it's
listen, I think he should have played. I'm just saying
he's healthy.
They were scared to death.
The man gets hurt, so when he's healthy, play him. And I'm not trying to just be somewhat poor comedic with this statement, but I literally think I'm talking to both sides of the aisle when I say play Richardson.
You're the unifier.
I am literally.
That's what you are today.
You can vote for Kamala and Trump.
You right here
with me
on this show.
Right here.
Sure.
I'm sure that's a scary thought to some people here.
God.
But nonetheless, hear me out. If Richardson is great and you think that all of a sudden he's going to grow, then play him. Let him get these unbelievable moments. Look at this schedule upcoming. What great moments. Brian Flores, the biggest blitzing team in the league, primetime, Sunday Night Football. Next week, Josh Allen.
Man
Campbell down the road. Yeah. A game in New York, Sunday Night Football against a Hall of Fame quarterback. Unbelievable moments. Okay, if you're there, go ahead and play him. If you think he sucks and you have the answer and you're done with him, play him, and theoretically, you'll lose and you'll get to the quicker answer. Because if you play.
But they want to win. They're saying if we know the
I'm
answer.
not talking to the Colts.
Right, gotcha.
I'm talking to the people that are in the you play Flacco camp. You get to the answer quicker. You could potentially get to the answer at the end of the season.
You get it over with.
And if you cannot waste the 2025 offseason, that to me is an important step for your franchise. I think franchises cripple themselves because they waste off seasons. They hold on for dear life, they opt for Band-Aids, and they waste chances to get better. I'd argue the Colts wasted the first offseason after Anthony Richardson when 5 $200 million franchise quarterbacks were drafted. 2 of them after the pick you had in Jordan Love and Jalen Hurts. You're wasting off seasons. To me, starting Flacco for 2 months, going back to Richardson in September of 2025, that wastes this upcoming offseason. Clarity on Richardson. That's what you want.
239-1070. Dave up next on The Fan. Dave, what's up, man? Fire away.
What's happening, fellas? Boy, there's a lot going on in there. This is a lot.
Dave, I need a beer.
What's that?
I need a beer.
Hey, it's not too early, man. I'm with you. So one thing, KB, on your comparisons, and with Josh Allen.
Rip me if you need to. I know. I trust me. You wouldn't be the first.
I think it's a fair question. And I don't have the answer in front of me right now, but I think the Colts right now are a better team than the Bills were when Allen was a rookie. And my thing would be, who was his backup? Like, were the Bills going to lose with Allen and lose with their backup?
Derek Anderson.
Okay, well, they were going to lose. So we have Flacco, who at least gives us a shot to win still. So that's a tough call for Steichen.
Yeah, and again, the Bills and
appreciate it, David.
Appreciate the call there. The Bills did make the playoffs the year prior. They were 9-7 for what it's worth. So Yeah, and I think, do you remember, because I do remember it, do you remember Josh Allen's first playoff game at Houston? Is that a memory to you at all? An overtime loss.
Oh, no, it's not.
And he was a maniac on the field.
Was he?
I mean, throwing the ball to Houston, fumbling the ball to Houston, and then doing Anthony Richardson week 1 stuff.
Crazy things.
Like, it was the most absurd game you've ever seen. But that was, I think, the moment of like, oh my gosh, if you can tame just a little bit of this, there's something. Ironically enough, the next season, they beat the Colts in the playoffs. And then, again, he's played at, I would argue, an MVP level.
It's funny. 3 weeks ago, I remember asking Stephen Holder, is Joe Flacco too good of a backup? Like, next year, do you need to have a backup that's stinkier so you're not getting tempted?
You need Mason Rudolph here, right?
Do you need Mason Rudolph or Will Levis in here? 239-1070, Chris up next on The Fan. Again, we'll keep these flying in the 9 o'clock hour. Chris, fire away, buddy.
Gentlemen, how are we this morning?
Good.
Chris, great. Thanks for the call.
Yep, you bet. Hey, we're talking about Richardson tapping out and Ballard drafting and things like that. But, do you think Latu is excited that all this stuff is going to Richardson so no one talks about how bad he's playing?
Appreciate it, Chris. Well, I saw that on the call screener. The Latu conversation is way on the back burner. He has, 2 sacks on the year?
I didn't have Latu on the 854 bingo card. I will say this about that general thought there. What was his name? Chris?
Chris, yes.
There's a lot of poor play happening on the Colts field right now that's getting covered up by this.
Listen.
And I said to you earlier, Joe Flacco walked into a 7-4 Browns team with the number 1 ranked defense in the NFL last season.
Right. And an established head coach, by the way. That needs to be thrown out there, too. Stefanski won Coach of the Year last year.
He's not walking into that right now. Is Joe Flacco tackling Joe Mixon on Sunday? Is Joe Flacco defending C.J. Stroud? Is Joe Flacco protecting himself? I am not one that sat here on Monday and said Anthony Richardson had 10 drops go against him. Like, I know some people have literally broken down the film.
Oh, sure.
But I will say there are a lot of moments of truth on Sunday for Colts pass catchers to make a play. And outside of Josh Downs, find me one time.
It was a bad day.
A Colts pass catcher made a play at the moment of truth.
No, Pierce had a bad day. Goodson dropped a touchdown.
Pittman's playing hurt.
A.D. Mitchell can't catch the ball in
Mallory
bounds.
dropped the ball.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
So, yes, I think it's covering up a lot of other stuff that we probably should have done.
I think an interesting question is what's the punishment for the wide receivers that played like crap on Sunday? I don't think that's a bad question as well. Again, Shane Steichen will talk with the media today at about 11 o'clock. 239-1070. We'll keep the phone calls going. 9 o'clock hour. I want to play a couple different pieces of sound, including what Jeff Saturday and then the Adam Schefter. And can Anthony Richardson actually bounce back from this? We'll talk about that and more. Appreciate you hanging out with us. One more hour to go. It's a Wednesday on The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
9 o'clock hour, and what has certainly been an energy-filled Wednesday. The defending champs inside of Gainbridge Fieldhouse tonight. How do the Pacers respond? Very interested in that. And Andy Sweeney, in 2.5 hours, we will hear from Shane Steichen, the Colts' first practice of the week. I did see the line went down a little bit with yesterday's announcement.
It went down to about a half point.
A little bit more Vegas belief in Joe Flacco. Still, 5-6 points, something around that. And for Sunday Night Football, Sam Darnold and Joe Flacco.
Feel the power, baby. Yeah, but you know what? There's a narrative and there's a story, and sometimes the story matters more than the actual player. So there you go.
And Mike Tirico will tell it great coming up on Sunday night.
The spread is at 5 right now, so I think it was right around 5.5 before the news of yesterday.
1 hour ago, I asked Stephen Holder, what questions do you have for Shane Steichen? Andy Sweeney, what questions would you have for Shane Steichen in 2.5 hours?
Yeah, I mean, besides whose decision this is, and I think there needs to be clarity if this is a benching, if this is Joe Flacco's team going forward. But going back, is this a benching because of taking himself out of the game, or is this a conversation around his play? If it's around his play, what does he need to do better? And then I think something that we talked about, is Anthony, I know this is a yes or no, so you have to kind of say it this way, is Anthony Richardson doing what a starting quarterback in the NFL needs to be doing day in, day out? And if he's not doing it, why? And what is he not doing? Shane Steichen has given very little to the media his time here in Indianapolis. He has shown no personality. He has shown nothing but I coach football, okay? That's fine, but this to me, perhaps, and I might be wrong here, you tell me, perhaps this is the first time where Steichen needs to give actual legitimate answers. And on top of it, he's going to be peppered. Every one of you guys on that call, or you'll be face-to-face today at the facility, is absolutely going to be peppering him with all these different questions. What is AR doing? What is he not doing? I mean, why are they not faithful to their plan? Has he given up on Anthony Richardson? I mean, all of these are questions that are absolutely valid. Do you want to let out a couple questions you're thinking of, or do you want to keep them? You want to keep them for 2 hours from now? I'm half joking.
No,
I'm half joking. There's not something I think won't be asked. I think everything that the Colts fan will want to know will be asked.
If this is a benching, is Richardson the backup?
That's the question. We talked about that during the break. To me, that's a top 3 or 4 question for me, because I could easily make the case that if Joe Flacco, if the offensive line plays like crap like it did on Sunday in Houston, maybe that's a little bit too strong, and Joe Flacco gets knocked out of the game, I could foresee Anthony Richardson not being the next quarterback entering the game.
If I could do the truth serum with him for 2 questions, it would be these.
Okay.
Do you feel like Anthony Richardson is meeting the work ethic standard of playing quarterback in the NFL?
Yep.
And then secondly, Shane, there's, I would argue, little to no past precedent in NFL history of benching a rookie quarterback, him coming back at some point with that same franchise and finding success. Why do you think that will happen?
Yeah. They're good ones.
I think one of the biggest misconceptions people have is how underwhelming an NFL practice looks, particularly for a backup quarterback.
I would agree.
Especially as the season moves along.
Listen, I'm with you.
Like, Anthony Richardson is about to get very little reps. I mean, I cannot stress that.
Oh, he's going to be on the side throwing the football with an equipment guy.
I mean, listen to Joe Flacco describe what it's like to be a starter versus a backup. So I just don't know where the learning comes from. To me, I just think the unscripted nature of playing the game of football is where the quarterback gets that. And again, the Colts sung that tune so much in 2023. Now they're abruptly not doing that. Why, I guess, would be the other answer.
Yeah, I mean, did he lose the locker room? I think all these are valid questions. And again, I think all of them will be asked. What will be answered today, to me, it's going to be must-watch, must-see type stuff to see how Shane Steichen, who gives bland answers, short answers, doesn't want to give away anything, is going to have to say something, or he's going to sit there for 10 minutes and be peppered and basically give you guys a no comment. Let's go back to the phone lines in a second here. 239-1070. I want to hit on one thing, and I don't know why I feel this way. I've been tough on Anthony Richardson, even though benching him here is crazier. I did not think this was going to happen, so I want to be clear. I don't know why I feel this way. I don't feel like I'm pandering here. I'm trying to figure out myself a little bit. I don't think this has to be the end for Anthony Richardson. But I say that, and I don't have history on my side. I don't. I have a general manager who hasn't won. I have a head coach in Shane Steichen. I respect the hell out of what he did in Philly with Jalen Hurts, but I don't also have any... I don't have much to go on with him now in a year and a half as a head coach. So I have a head coach that I'm still unsure about. I have a general manager that I am most definitely unsure about. And I have a franchise and an owner on top of it that has been treading water now for a number of years and has not been winning. The winning DNA that the Indianapolis Colts once had, they no longer, obviously, they no longer have that. So I don't have the DNA in the organization. I don't have the owner. The owner decided not to spend money this year when they could have to make this team better, whatever. And the general manager, I'm unsure about the coach. So I'm throwing all that out there, and I'm throwing a quarterback at you that I'm unsure about whether he can play, whether he's living up to these standards. So maybe he's just a bust, and they see it, and they're worried about it, and they see it. That is absolutely on the table. I guess I feel like if he's being benched because he tapped out, Anthony Richardson can go out there. Heard Chris Canty talk about this when I was driving in on Sportsmanlike on ESPN Radio before us. He can work his ass off and gain that trust back, right? He can work his ass off and hopefully at some point become a better quarterback. I guess while there's no history on my side, I still feel like there is an avenue for Anthony Richardson to do something here in Indianapolis as a starting quarterback. I don't think do you believe that? I'm not sure you believe it. I'm trying to figure.
I have major reservations.
I am trying to figure out why that is even in my mind that he could do that, but it is in my mind. And I have no why to go behind that on why that could happen, because all the whys are organization that's struggling, GM that's struggling, coach that I like Shane Steichen, but he hasn't won in the NFL at this level, and a quarterback who's 22 years old and seems to be rather entitled.
Just delays so much for me. It just so what? Richardson doesn't play the rest of the season. He works his ass off. He becomes a starter in 2025. Then does 2025? Do we live through hey, he's just not used to playing, guys?
Yeah, well, yeah.
So then at the end of the 2025 season, are you picking up his fifth-year option?
Well, that's the thing. There's so many.
So then that means what? 2026? 2026 is the first true evaluation period.
There's so many bigger questions
is
coming
Ballard
in 2025.
Still here? Yeah. Hey, listen. Ballard's surviving everything. Yeah. So yeah, is he still here? You damn right he's still here.
At some point, I do want to get to that Brian Flores audio, but Mark, whichever caller you feel like is bringing it, go ahead.
All right, let's go to Jerry, who's been in the longest. Jerry has an interesting AR perspective.
Hey, Jerry. Good morning to you.
Morning. How are you guys?
We are well. Thank you for the call.
Hey, a couple of things. First of all, I come from a non-Colts fan perspective. I've been living in Indiana and have found no reason to become a Colts fan yet. I'm still kind of attached to my Cardinals. But with that being said, when the team drafted AR, I called into you guys and said he reminds me of the Harold Miner pick, that got this wonderful athlete with all the athletic ability in the world, but I don't know if he's going to work out. That wasn't meant to be an indictment on AR. It was just to say be careful what you wish for when you go and draft somebody that's unproven. Getting to the perspective on Anthony Richardson. He's played 5 minutes of college football. He's played 20 minutes of professional football, and we're giving up on him already? That just makes no sense to me at all. If you look at Peyton Manning's first year, he sucked. On him, but why are we giving up on Anthony Richardson, who's statistically at this point better than even Peyton Manning was at that point? So I just don't get it. This organization was just completely nuts to me. I don't understand why you would draft somebody 4th overall and decide, well, hey, let's give up on him now. At least give him some time to figure this out. And as far as the game went on Sunday, Anthony Richardson didn't lose that game. The coach lost the game. The other players lost the game. Yeah, he did some stupid things, and I don't get the tapping out thing, but He's 22 years old, and he probably just got overwhelmed at the moment.
Jerry, thank you. Andy, thoughts?
My biggest problem with Anthony Richardson is he didn't get good college coaching. He committed to Dan Mullen. He didn't play under Dan Mullen. He played under Billy Napier.
Remember how hard it was, Mark, to get Billy Napier on the phone?
Billy Napier is a complete bum. Who's going to get fired? Who should be fired? Who shouldn't even be the coach of Florida in the first place?
It was like impossible.
And so
I could get Adam Silver on the air before I could get Billy
right,
Napier.
Exactly. Yeah. We got Caitlin Clark before.
Yeah, we got
Billy
Caitlin
Napier.
Clark. We got multiple Olympians, guys, men and women with gold medals and silver medals around their neck, and not him. I just think that has something to do with it. I know Dan Mullen. He had Dak Prescott at Mississippi State, and he fizzled out and got kind of lazy there recruiting at Florida. We don't need to rehash that. I know people don't care, but I think that's part of it that, we need to remember Anthony Richardson, he got injured in high school too, right? I mean, not only is he an inexperienced quarterback, he is so different than anybody else coming into this position. It's like, remember when Mark Sanchez got drafted high by the Jets? The knock on him was, and Sam Darnold, that they only started 1 year. They were starting under like Pete Carroll at USC. I mean, these guys were playing with NFL guys and were playing with reputable coaches at a big-time program, and my man here got Billy Napier coaching. So, I go from limited at high school, and it's not even like he even got the full array of college. And then he got to the pros. Like, I wonder in their plan, me questioning their plan, looking back at all this now, I know he has to play to get those reps, but he's so far behind in reps and maturity at the position. It just feels like it was going to take so much to get him up to speed. Like, even more so. This was more than a Mark Sanchez or a Sam Darnold. It really was.
Yeah, it's like, I think the difficulty of it is, I actually think Jerry has a strong point there in the whole, our fan base is not used to this. I mean, you think about it. The young quarterbacks, the rookie quarterbacks that we have had to watch, whether it's Luck, whether it's Manny, whether it's Jeff George, I mean, number 1 overall picks.
Yeah.
And,
I know.
It looks different, awkward, bad, ugly, however you want to describe it, it looks like that. For a lot of NFL franchises. He brought up he's a fan of the Arizona Cardinals. Certainly they have attempted. Josh Rosen would be probably the most recent poster child of it. Now Kyler Murray, a little bit different there. But Andy, your fan base has certainly lived it. Hell, you're still living it.
6 years in, buddy.
It's weird. And this, I would argue that the Colts have experienced it the least of anybody in the last three and a half decades. I mean, you got to go way back to find the time of when have the Colts drafted a QB at 22 overall and played that guy, or a second-round pick that they've believed in, or a Russell Wilson type. Like, those examples that all these franchises have gone with here. And I just think it makes for an awkward viewing experience, as weird as that might sound. And I just think it's a weird time to be a Colts fan.
It is. They're the oddest team in the NFL right now. There's no doubt about it. I mean, from the owner to the general manager to all the Anthony Richardson stuff to the love to Joe Flacco to where they are in the standings and everything, they're an odd team. Let's go to Kurt up next, 239-1070. Kurt, good morning. Fire away, buddy.
Hey, thank you for taking the call. Great show, by the way, guys. Hey, my biggest, the biggest truth serum to get out of all of this came from Ryan Kelly. We got to remember that Ryan Kelly, this is the same guy that criticized fans for booing Andrew Luck when he quit on this team. So for Ryan Kelly to come out here and, say the things that he said about Anthony Richardson, to me, that says a lot about Anthony Richardson and that locker room.
Yeah, I Zaire Franklin, I think, uttered some similar things to Ryan Kelly. And again, I keep on coming back to that. It's how I led off the show today, Andy, is how much was this decision rooted in how Shane Steichen, Chris Ballard, and potentially Jim Irsay are viewing the locker room? And is that right or wrong? I asked you earlier, what should be the punishment for tapping out? Is it an outright missing of a game? Is it you stand up in front of your team and you give a passionate speech and you apologize to the nth degree. I mean, what's Tyreek Stevenson going to have to do in Chicago? Is the Tyreek Stevenson thing worse than Anthony Richardson?
That's what I was going to say. What's the more benchable offense?
It's a great question. Plus, Eberflus threw him under the bus. It was like he was the one that was supposed to be the bad guy that covered Noah Gray to make it even worse.
Matt
on the poor kid.
Shouldn't be throwing anybody under the bus these days.
Listen,
with
I'm with
that, I do want to play this Brian Flores audio. And again, Brian Flores, the Minnesota defensive coordinator, that's who the Colts will play coming up on Sunday. He was asked, just kind of a very simple question yesterday. I was watching the press conference live, and I was curious. I always enjoy, what insights do they have on the other team? And he was asked just a very open-ended question about Anthony Richardson. He describes him as a player and then talks specifically about the tap-out play.
Explosive athlete, big-time arm. I mean, he's got a throw in the Houston game earlier that probably one of the best throws I've seen. Look, they're in every game. I mean, they're 4-4. They could easily, won a few more games. So it's right now. It's it's not just Anthony Richardson. They got good backs. They got good old line. They probably got one of the best backs in the league. They got good receivers. I think Anthony he's a young player, still trying to find his way to a degree, but still makes a lot of plays. I mean, I know there's been a lot of talk about the play where he came out, but did you watch the play? Guy throws a 300-pounder off him. He runs around. I thought it was an incredible play. I mean, I got tired watching him, but I think he's a very, very talented young player. He's a dangerous player. On any snap, he could break a couple tackles and go the distance. He's fast. He's got a huge arm. When you talk about QB mobility and off-script plays, I mean, that's what he does and keep his team in a game. Even when not every throw is, perfect for him. He still has that deep, that explosive playability, which, you have those, you have 2 or 3 of those, and you're in the game.
I have a snarky take on this.
Go ahead.
I mean, does Brian Flores want to face Anthony Richardson?
I actually am kind of torn on that because,
too.
There are times when the Colts are getting ready for a team and the starter's the stationary guy and the backup is the more volatile runner. And I'm like, I think you'd rather play the stationary dude.
Yeah.
Just because you know where he's going to be.
Right.
I know. I mean, there are a lot of people, and I tweet out that video, there are a lot of people that said, oh, he just wants to play Richardson. That's why he keeps on keeping out.
That's what the majority of people
all
are
this
saying.
Praise on that. I guess, he mentions they're in every game. It is kind of wild to think, and again, I think Richardson has been poor as a quarterback. It's wild to think they've played 10 games and 9 of them have been one possession. He's 5-5 as a starter. So do you view that as, if you had a better quarterback,
that's the way
you'd
I
be
view
better?
It.
But haven't we just talked about how bad the run defense has been and how the lack of support? Like I'm torn. Joe Flacco had an incredible game against Jacksonville, and they still lost.
No, I think if they did this, and it's not because he took himself out of the game last week, they think they have a playoff team. And Joe Flacco can get them over the hump in these games and can win it and can get them to the playoffs. I believe that's what they feel, 100%.
It is. I've heard, and Nick just chimed in here, and there's been several season ticket members that have reached out and have mentioned they just want to win. Like they are ready to see Flacco. They do not want this move. And we did the poll yesterday, Mark, 68-32, something like that. Does that sound right?
Sounds about right.
How it kind of ended, I think, yesterday. 68 wanting to see Richardson continue to play, 32 wanting Flacco.
Well, I threw another poll out there, too. I said, do you agree with the Colts' decision to bench Anthony Richardson? And with almost 600 votes, 55% said yes, 44.6% said no.
Well, that's a lot different answer than the other one there. But I guess I bring all this up, Andy, to say, and I guess we're asking to put ourselves into people's pockets here in terms of how you spend your money. But the season ticket member, would you rather watch the same song and dance with a different lead actor that you've seen for the last 5-6 years with Flacco, or would you rather watch Richardson, whatever, let's say finish out this 2024 season?
I know.
And then a decision be made after that year.
I know. I'm struggling. It seems like it seems like the side that says play Flacco is by far the most vocal. But that doesn't mean that they're the majority. But it means they're the loudest. And sometimes we can get confused by that. The poll question we put up yesterday, I was surprised it was basically 70-30. Today, the one that we put up is 55-45. I thought is a little bit more representative of how I thought the split of the fan base was. Let's see Flacco. I want to win. I'm tired of Anthony Richardson. I felt like they were the loudest, but I didn't know if they were the majority. I thought they were, and it seems like they might be. We'll get to a morning check down here in a second. John up next on the Fan, 239-1070. Fire away, John.
Hey, good morning, guys. How you guys doing?
Good.
Hey, Kevin, I love your comparison to Josh Allen. I've got a friend that's a huge Bills fan, and he and I have been kind of saying this for the last couple weeks. Is there any way you guys have one of your media guys make like a graphic that shows that side-by-side comparison? Because I think it's perfect, but just has both the guys up there and then has those stats side to side like that, and then you guys can post that on your media outlets.
Yeah, I actually tweeted out last night. Mark, will you retweet that? Mark will do that from the show account there. And there's part of me, Andy, when I did that, I'm like, is this low hanging fruit? Is this am I
not when it's the comp,
but
not when it's the comp.
I just
it's
go.
not.
I mean, and again, over the last 72 hours, I've gone back and read the stuff I wrote after the draft, and Josh Allen's name is in a lot of that. And so I'm like, wait, I mean, this is kind of the guy that we talked about. The Colts, I don't know publicly if they said Josh Allen's name, but certainly behind the scenes, they mentioned Josh Allen's name. And so when you have that play out, and again, Buffalo went to Allen, the Colts went with Richardson. When you have both of those paths kind of play out, I felt like I was always going to watch the Richardson career alongside the Allen career arc. So I don't think it's low-hanging fruit, I guess, to answer my own question. But, yeah, I understand. There are other examples of quarterbacks that don't do well. Like, I'm not sitting here putting up Peyton Manning side by side because I just don't think. Peyton Manning played for 4 years at Tennessee, a far different quarterback stylistically. His quarterback pedigree is different
he grew up
from the family, all those things. So, like, again, I could go there if I really wanted to.
Yeah, but that would be silly.
But I'm not going to.
You would ruin your point if that's the case. Can I ask you something? Because we got to get to a check down here. We played that Warren Sharp sound earlier, and he was equating a lot of the stuff that Steichen was trying to do because it's Shane Steichen to Jalen Hurts. Was Jalen Hurts not the comparison because he played so much college football when AR got drafted?
Both of them, yeah, I thought the size is a little different, of course, in the two. And yes, I thought Hurts had reached a higher. Hurts was a Heisman.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he won the Heisman.
Yeah, I was going to say, did he win it? I don't know.
Yeah,
all of them.
I mean, he played for Lincoln Riley, and he played all those years under Nick Saban.
Right.
So he got the best coaching, and, our guy AR got Billy Napier for a season.
To be frank, there's really no one with the Richardson college resume. That's why I looked at Allen and thought, okay, one extra year of playing. Most of these quarterbacks play for 3 years.
Sure they do.
In college.
At least 2 years, KB.
So the fact that Allen had only played one more year and really hadn't had any great success. Now, the thought with Allen was, I mean, look at Wyoming. 3 of his games are in snow.
Sure.
And his pass catchers are terrible. Now, granted, the Florida pass catchers weren't great either. So, I don't know. It's probably low-hanging fruit. But we are going to take a 7-minute audible with Purdue basketball. We have done our college basketball tour around
Rob
the state.
Blackman.
Rob
Took a hell of a week to do this.
And we'll take your calls after Rob Blackman. Give us 7 minutes with Rob Blackman.
So, Indiana yesterday, Purdue today. We'll do a little Butler tomorrow. We'll obviously continue this conversation, though. Let's get to a quick morning check.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by Marian University Football, pursuing another NAIA championship this season. Don't miss the on-campus action at Ascension St. Vincent Field. Visit NUKnights.com for tickets.
Obviously, the conversation with Anthony Richardson being benched, we'll get back to that. We'll continue to take your calls all the way up until 10 o'clock. Shane Steichen will meet with the media in the 11 o'clock hour. Pacers in action tonight, taking on the Celtics, 6:30 right here on the Fan. And since we've talked last hour, Boston went from a 7.5-point favorite to a 6.5-point favorite on ESPN Bet. So go figure. Miles Turner questionable tonight with an ankle.
Yeah, again, Colts' first practice of the week. One thing to note here, Minnesota did trade for Cam Robinson, their left tackle. Christian Darrisaw, their starting left tackle, out for the season. So I feel like in watching Cam Robinson from Jacksonville, there's been times I'm like, oh, he's pretty solid, and other times I'm like, oh, boy, he's a liability. So new left tackle there in Minnesota. Again, Bernard Ryman in concussion protocol for the Colts here. Minnesota should get T.J. Hawkinson back for his debut this season. the tight end there.
Of course.
Right
Of
now,
course.
that spread a little over 5, 6-ish, somewhere around there for Sunday Night Football. In Week 9, Indiana expecting Curtis Rourke back, right around a touchdown favorite at East Lansing. Purdue's got Northwestern this weekend. Andy, unless you got anything else, that's about it.
No, World Series Game 4 last night, 11-4 your final. Yankees over the Dodgers. It sets up Game 5 tonight, 8 o'clock on Fox. Voice of Purdue basketball, Rob Blackman. What's this season going to look like for the Boilers? We'll take a 7-minute break from the Anthony Richardson discussion, and we'll talk with him next. It's a Wednesday, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Like walking outside to get some fresh air, Rob Blackman is our break here on this Wednesday morning.
Does Rob know what's going on?
I don't know if he knows that he is our break, but I don't know if he takes that as a compliment or what. But nonetheless, that's how I'm viewing Rob Blackman here. Rob, great to hear your voice as always, the voice of the Boilers. Thank you for not having us talk about Anthony Richardson and Joe Flacco for 7 minutes.
This is what we share in common this morning. Neither of us wants to talk football at any level right now.
We got an exhibition game tonight inside of Mackey Arena.
Right.
Grand Valley State, Texas A&M Corpus Christi for the Boilers on Monday. Rob, we know this. Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, Trey Kaufman-Wren, and Trench starting jobs. By all accounts, sounded like they were outstanding against Creighton last week in that exhibition game. What is Matt Painter looking for in those other two starting jobs? Not necessarily maybe who, but what?
Yeah, I would say complementary roles for anyone else other than the three that you just named. Braden, 31 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists at Creighton. Trey Kaufman-Wren, 22 points, 8 rebounds, no turnovers. Fletcher Lawyer, 17 points, 5 assists, no turnovers. You got exactly what you thought you would get from those three guys in that exhibition game against Creighton because they've been there, done that. You know, Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer, they've started every game they've ever played at Purdue since they stepped on campus as true freshmen. So there's no mystery in what you're going to get from those three guys that were on the starting lineup for a Final Four team. But yeah, what about the other pieces? You know, the last 2 years it's been all about what was the most complimentary or who were the most complimentary pieces that made sense for Zach Edey, because obviously Zach was going to touch the ball every single time down the floor. Now it's a matter of who best complements the three guys that you just named. And at both ends of the floor as well. You know, Purdue's looking for some rim protection. Right now they don't have that. Granted, we're only one exhibition game into the season. But they're also looking for some guys who can provide some scoring punch at the other end too and take a little bit of the load off the three guys I just mentioned. I mean, again, I'm not knee-jerk reacting here. It's one exhibition game. But, you know, Braden Smith played 35 minutes in that game, took 23 shots. I don't think Purdue would want him playing that many minutes every single game this year, taking that many shots, because all of a sudden you become pretty one-dimensional offensively. So we shall see. But those are, I would say that's the number one thing. Whom in that group of rotation guys best complements those other three, and if you can fill that role, you're probably going to find yourself on the floor a lot.
Stylistically, Rob, how do you think they're different? You mentioned, last year you always had to throw it into Edey, right? You threw it into him. Yeah. He could score around the rim. He was the focal point. He could get to the free throw line. How they're obviously going to be different. What do you think it will look like as the season progresses with Matt Painter?
You know, it's interesting because Matt would tell you we're still going to throw it inside because that's what Purdue does. We always throw it inside. And I do believe there's some truth to that. The difference being when you throw it inside, you don't just automatically assume you're getting the bucket or getting to the foul line like you did with Zach Edey. That was just the automatic assumption. Oh, okay, we threw it inside. We'll be in good shape here. I do think you're going to see some more 5-out, probably more than Purdue's ever played. When Purdue decides to go small, with small being Trey Kaufman-Wren at the center position at 6'9", I think that makes Purdue certainly a much more versatile offensively, much more dangerous offensively. The problem is what you're giving up at the other end, especially if the other team has a quality big guy. You're just not going to offer much resistance in there. But I would also say this, and Coach Painter was quick to point this out on our pregame interview for the Creighton game. You know, Purdue I didn't realize this till he mentioned it. Last year, Purdue was second in the country in ball screens, using ball screens. Now, again, a lot of it was Zach Edey and Braden Smith, but Purdue's not going to get away from that. Purdue's still going to be in a ton of ball screen offense stuff this season, especially with the ball in Braden Smith's hands. Difference being, last year, you know, it was almost always Zach Edey setting that screen. This year it's going to be a variety of different guys setting those ball screens for Braden Smith to try to put the other team in a tough position defensively. So we shall see. Again, Matt Painter, I will say this is his 20th season at Purdue. In the previous 19, he's right. Purdue has always thrown the ball inside. Now, granted, Purdue's always had a 7-footer in there who's pretty good, but that's always been a staple of that Purdue offense. So I don't see Purdue getting away from that. But obviously, again, the results probably going to be a little different this year than they have been the last couple. when you're throwing that ball inside and it's not Zach Edey catching that basketball.
Again, Purdue's going to open up play Monday, Texas A&M Corpus Christi to get their season started. Exhibition game tonight, Grand Valley State. Rob, last one for me. We had several conversations with you last spring throughout that tournament run. We had our Purdue guest today all the way up until that national title game. One memory. If you had to pick out one from the entire run, what would it be?
Oh, man, that's a tough one. Oh, gosh.
And I ask that to say this while you think, like, the Colts won the Super Bowl in 06. I feel like you ask every player what the memory is, though, they point to the AFC Championship game. Like that, that's the memory. And like, I don't know, Purdue beat NC State in the semifinal game. I feel like people forget about that and they say, what about Lance Jones' shot in the Elite Eight? What about Zach Edey's block on Dalton Connect? It's like, those things I feel like kind of get lost in the shuffle. The Gonzaga game I thought was a great first half, and that was a game people forget about too.
And actually, as I think about it, it wasn't actually a play in a game. But it was seeing the smile on Gene Katie's face when they brought him down on the floor for the cutting of the nets to go to the Final Four in Detroit. Because for whatever reason, I had the perfect angle from our broadcast position. I could see him perfectly just a few feet away, and just a smile that he had on his face. I think that's probably one thing that'll stick with me forever. I mean, you put me on the spot there because there are so many memorable events that happened during that run. But if I had to pick an all-time favorite, the one that I will never forget, I think I'd probably move that one right to the top of the list.
That makes complete sense. Hope the legend is doing well. And Rob, great to hear your voice. Looking forward to it. I am fascinated to see how it'll unfold for Purdue this season. Have a great call tonight, and hopefully we can continue our conversations throughout the basketball season.
Yeah, I would enjoy that. Thank you, guys. Let's do that.
It's a great Rob Blackman, voice of the Boilers, our tour around the state. Indiana yesterday, Purdue today. We'll do Butler tomorrow, maybe a little ticket giveaway.
Okay.
With Mark Minner and the Bulldogs tomorrow.
About.
And Andy, that was the exact need. I think I had a cigarette. I walked outside.
I was going to say.
I think I had a cigarette, fresh air. I'm ready to go.
Break.
Richardson, Flacco, come on. Let's go.
Little smoke break for Kevin Bowen here outside the studios. Just to add one thing, 7 guys besides the Smith, Kaufman, Wren, and obviously Fletcher Lawyer. I wonder, 10-man rotation, that's fine. That will get cut down to 8 or 9. A guy or two will lose it. And then I didn't ask him because we're going to get back to Anthony Richardson. I am surprised. I was wondering if something happened. Cam Heide only played 13 minutes and didn't take a shot. And to me, that's a guy that, last year, I know he made some big plays. He didn't score much, but he had 13 minutes, and that's what he averaged last year. I thought his uptick might be, 20, 21 minutes instead of 13 minutes. He's a guy I'm watching, I guess. That's the best way for me to put it.
Will Berg, the big Swede, the big 7 whatever guy, and Jakari Harris, Glenn Robinson's kid, in the starting lineup on Saturday night. If you would have presented me, hey, here are the pairs they're going to fill out the starting lineup with, I would not have thought those two.
Yeah, and Berg only played 9 minutes, but he did start.
Heide, Colvin, C.J. Cox, I know some people are pretty high on him as a freshman, so again, cannot wait to see how everything unfolds there.
Yeah, so I should have mentioned Miles Colvin. He's probably the other one that most Purdue fans are probably going to be watching. Let's take a break. We'll keep taking your phone calls and reaction all the way up until 10 o'clock. Anthony Richardson bench. Shane Steichen will meet with the media today. What do you think? 239-1070. It's a Wednesday right here on The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Give away a Mark 4-pack of tickets to Indy 11, a pair. What
4-pack, family 4-pack to the Indy 11 for November 3rd against Rhode Island at Carroll Stadium.
There you go. Family 4-pack. We'll do that at some point here in this final segment. We'll call it maybe the Jiffy Lube oil change segment, if you will. No pop quiz today, with certainly plenty of attention on the Colts and the starting quarterback change. Thank you to Jiffy Lube for that. Andy Sweeney, do I have this right here as I map out the next handful of years for the Colts?
Go ahead. It'd be nice if I turned my microphone on.
Next year,
far away.
I think maybe Derek Carr. Bring him in. 9 wins there. 2026. The AI quarterback that is Russell Wilson.
Okay.
Maybe for 8. How old would Russell then be? 36?
I was about to say 37, 38 years old, right?
2027, maybe you catch Baker Mayfield on like his 6th or 7th team at that point.
I got to think at some point Minnesota won't want to keep Sam Darnold because they have J.J. McCarthy.
The Colts traded back with the Jets.
Sure.
So ended up taking Darnold.
So, Sammy Darnold might be available at some point.
Geno Smith, I assume. Does Aaron Rodgers have one more year in him?
Do they say third time's the charm? Isn't that the phrase, right? Third time's the charm. Jacoby Brissett.
Oh, well, sure.
For a third time. I think by that point, you could successfully tank for Marshall Manning in the 2029 draft.
Yeah, we were laughing during the break. Are they trying to tank for 2 years from now for March Manning? But you're right. Marshall, that's the kid's name then? What year is he then?
Well, he's Peyton's kid. I mean, I don't know. He's got to be, 12, 13?
That's what I was thinking of.
Is my math good, or do I need to wait a few more years on that?
Just a little bit more patience, you Colts fans. Everything's going to be fine.
I can't believe this is a conversation at 9:45 on a Wednesday. And it might be irrelevant. Today we might find out it's a 1-week benching.
Sure.
But if Flacco starts the rest of the year, could you see them taking a quarterback in round 1 or 2? Or 3?
I mean,
April?
I would even go as far as they should take a quarterback in the first 3 rounds.
Should versus will.
Versus will.
Don't go should. Yeah, I don't want your opinion here.
I know.
I want I don't see them doing that.
I don't either. I agree.
So
I'm with you.
I almost feel like as much as Flacco starting the final 2 months of the year, I should probably pay attention to some of these college quarterbacks a little bit more. I almost think that's irrelevant. And this gets back to if you think Richardson is done and you want to see Flacco, this does not mean that they think Richardson is done.
Right.
They are still, it is if this is really happening, Flacco for 2 months, this delays Richardson and it delays Chris Ballard.
Yes.
Just what every Colts fan wants to hear.
That's my opinion.
I would take it yes, you are probably right. It's just with the Ballard conversation, I am to the point that anymore, let's say he whiffed. Let's say the plan completely wrong. Anthony Richardson, not their guy for a myriad of reasons, whether it be play, whether it be maturity, whether he's whether he's just not a very good quarterback. They don't think they can develop him, whatever it may be. If there's a mistake there, being tied to a quarterback loses your job if you're a general manager. It does. I mean, I just feel like it's the majority of the time.
That's NFL gospel. That's not Jim Irsay's gospel.
Exactly. So, yes, why would I take any other stance than this delays all of the Chris Ballard stuff? To me, I view it literally the opposite, but you guys for years have been having the same conversation. You don't need me to tell you what the conversation is with Chris Ballard. You want to take a few more calls here?
Let's do that, and let's also throw this in.
Okay.
Mark, are you good with this? Follow our show account. Wake Up Call, there's an underscore in there, right, Mark? Wake Up Call 1075. Is underscore at the end of it?
Yeah, Wake Up Call _1075.
The first new follower to our Twitter account, 4-pack tickets to that Indy 11 game.
Boom.
There you go. That. All
So follow us on Twitter.
There we go.
Wake Up Call _1075.
Yeah, win some tickets. So there you go. We'll be doing that. 239-1070. Matthew, appreciate you waiting. Matthew up next here on The Fan on this Wednesday.
Morning, fellas.
Hey, Matthew.
I've just got a question that'll get a lot of eye rolls and sighs around here, but would it have been easier to just get Andrew Luck some protection instead of doing this for 6 years?
Oh, man.
Matthew, you waited 40 minutes for that. God bless you. You delivered your line. You delivered it perfectly.
I didn't have luck on the resume,
No,
or I didn't have that
appreciate
on the bingo card today at all.
The answer is yes, but Luck's a different guy, right? He's a different cat a little bit. Maybe not as married to football as some of these other guys that will, like Aaron Rodgers is going to be drug off the field before he gives it up, right? Like Brett Favre.
There is part of me.
That ain't Andrew Luck.
This isn't the conversation I want to have on October 30th, but there is part of me. It's like, would Luck have eventually got there?
Yeah.
I mean, even if the injuries weren't to that level, would he eventually have got there of like, yeah, my life is a lot more than football?
239-1070. Ryan up next on the Fan. Fire away, buddy.
Hey, guys. Great show. First-time caller. Hey, I just had a question. Why haven't we talked about Justin Fields at all? I thought he played pretty well in Pittsburgh, and I don't feel like you'd have to give a lot up for him, and he's a fairly young guy. Let's give it a shot because, let's face it, I don't think AR is the guy, and Joe Flacco's not the future. So give me C. Give me option C.
Ryan, thank you for the call. Add him to the list. Push everybody down a year. Fields is in a contract year, right? Let me go back to that list. I'll push everybody down.
Okay.
Chris Ballard, a big Justin Fields fan, for what it is worth.
Yeah, I mean, Fields is okay. I mean, boy, but you feel like you know who he is. That's the allurement with Anthony Richardson was the upside. Justin Fields, to me, has lost the upside because he's been in the NFL. What is it, Mark? 4 years now,
Yeah,
whatever it is.
like that. I really think it's difficult. And again, Darnold to a degree, Geno Smith to a degree, Baker Mayfield to a degree. I think those are rare examples. And I would argue, where are those three quarterbacks getting those respective franchises?
Yeah, and I mean, Sam Darnold played for 3 teams, though. 4 teams.
Right, and that's what I'm getting
Took
at.
a while.
It takes a while, and it's multiple stops, and still, is that the level you want to be at? Like, you've got to swing for the fences. It's why I went over those AFC Championship quarterbacks earlier in the show of this is Mahomes, Lamar, Allen, Burrow, and again, I think Stroud's knocking on the door. Andy, all those teams drafted those guys.
Yep.
All of them. Now, and again, not all of them were the first overall pick.
No.
Like, just Burrow. So I don't want to act like this is something to where all of a sudden, you have to be 2-15. Like, no, you can find it. I mean, where was Mahomes taken? Where was Lamar taken? Allen was, 7th overall? Buffalo trade up twice. So, the retread just has.
I know you're anti-retread, and
I am anti-retread. And look, drafting a quarterback has risk too. Like I am not going to talk out of both sides of my mouth, but it also I think reaps the best chance for the long-term benefits than the retread does.
It provides hope.
Who's the best retread? Tannehill? I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, to me, Stafford and Peyton and Brady, those guys are in different categories.
Yeah.
They had reached.
Stafford's probably a Hall of Famer, so yeah.
They had all reached very, very impressive, crazy numbers in the first. The first team didn't bail on them. I guess is what I'm getting at.
Kirk Cousins is not a retread. He's still been good enough.
Fields,
right?
Baker, and Darnold and Geno were all.
Well, they were
told
done.
no by their first franchise.
They were. I mean, Darnold was told no by the first, second, and third, and then Baker Mayfield, if you remember, had his rehab assignment with Sean McVay. And remember when he came in?
I forgot about
remember
that. It's
when
like a Thursday night game.
Exactly. Remember when he came in for Matthew Stafford and led that big fourth quarter comeback, and he won, and he was in the locker room pumped up, and then he goes obviously to Tampa, and he's been way above average. I mean, he might be a Pro Bowler this year in the NFC.
Nick mentions Goff. Okay, I could maybe go there.
Boy, he made a Super Bowl though.
Goff did make it to a Super Bowl, so I still. And what number pick was he?
Oh, he was number 1.
Was he 1?
Yeah,
was it
he was 1.
Mariota 2 that year?
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, man,
Mariota.
That's crazy.
Forgot about him.
Again, it just. You can find a random example or two. I still think draft and mold and build from homegrown talent is your best way.
Simon up next here on The Fan, 239-1070. Simon, go ahead, man.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. Look, real quick, wonder if the tap out, which I think by now we've all agreed that's played into this decision to bench, at least on some level, maybe 100%. But wonder if the tap out is worse than him being hurt. Hear me out. Or, excuse me, being tired. Hear me out. Everybody that's bought a car or has a teenager knows that when somebody says, I'll be honest with you, or I'm not going to lie, the next 5 things that come out of their mouth, untrue, right? So wonder if it's worse. Like, wonder if he's mentally broken. And he just, because if you think back, like he came out, after he taps out, he comes out, he takes a knee, and then when he came back in the next series, he plays really well, actually.
Right.
I just feel like, the guy's making mistakes that Pop Warner kids don't make. I mean, every Pop Warner kid in the world knows that you run out of bounds, when you're down and you're trying to save clock. I'm just concerned that he's already mentally broken, and that's more important than saying, hey, or that's more egregious than saying I'm tired. I get it. We're in the kick the stigma era, which I love, but for crying out loud, it could be worse than him being tired.
Well, let me add.
Thank you, Simon, for the call.
Yeah, appreciate the phone call. One thing we didn't talk too much about. One thing we didn't talk too much about today is, I mean, do they think he needs to actually like their evaluation is he does need to take a step back. And then we'll try to go forward again. Yeah. Otherwise, he's going to keep being a crappy quarterback. Right. I think, but then I have to trust in God. Then you have to trust in Chris Ballard and another plan. And I can understand why.
And a plan that I would argue no NFL team has ever successfully had.
Agreed. And there's no reason, as a Colts fan, you should buy into any of these plans anymore. I mean, they're asking you to buy into something that, I mean, come on, what are we doing?
To Simon's point, literally, Zaire Franklin said he should have lied in the post-game presser.
Well, that's what we said. I mean, he came off having the hand. He was looking at his hand.
Right, the left wrist at one point, when he braced his fall.
I was worried about my hand.
Yeah.
You want to do one more call?
Yeah, I just got pen on my shorts. I don't know how to get it off.
And that's never going to get off, too. You ruined those shorts. Tony, 30 seconds or less. Tony, you're the last one today. Appreciate all the calls. Tony, fire away. 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Hey, right on for having me on. I just think this whole baffling thing, the Colts fans, they don't know what the hell they want. And you got half the fans saying, we want to put in Flacco. The other, I mean, we talked about it from the beginning of the season. It's about the development of Anthony Richardson. Well, we already know he's not a good mindset. You just put a pitchfork in him. You know what I mean? And, I mean, I was trending towards the Flacco bandwagon, but, hell, we could have waited another 4 games. But at the end of the day, I kind of like the move. AR, I mean, the guy couldn't throw a freaking rock in the ocean. It's time to move on. We took a shot. We missed. Let's move on. Let's go win games.
He could skip one.
Appreciate it.
With that velocity, he could skip one, I think.
I stunk at that. Skipping rocks.
I feel like most I get was like 2.
Yeah,
maybe 2.
I had buddies that could skip them across an entire lake. You know? I mean, it's like, what are we doing?
I thought Tony's call was pretty good because I feel like Tony just talked himself in and out of 3 different things there, too.
I thought he hated the call, and then, wait a minute, he liked the decision. He is right that the fan base is very split right now.
Tony just summed up the entire show in 30 seconds.
Yeah, he really did. So you're heading out there today? Good luck. That'll be fun.
It's getting Shane Steichen, 11:30. Colts practice after that, and I assume we will hear from Anthony Richardson. I will say this. I think it's a little odd we haven't had the notes apology from Richardson.
Yeah. What Steichen says, if AR talks today, what he says is going to be very interesting. If you miss any of the show, check it out, 1075thefan.com. Jimmy's coming up at noon, JMV at 3. Have a good afternoon right here, 93.5, 1075.